waited long enough.
All right. Yes, I would agree.
IT isn't going to be done for a hot minute anyway, so.
I was going to say.
Oh, hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Dan, I am 100% jealous. You get
I
to
know.
just sit on a beach.
A werewolf, a stag, a dog, and a rat just walking into a bar. Zootopia just got crazy. That's great.
Zootopia 2.
Zootopia 2. I'm anxiously awaiting Zootopia 2.
Judy Hopps must hunt down the Marauders.
With her partner.
That guy. I can't remember his name.
Nick.
I can't remember the fox name.
Nick. I don't remember what his last name is.
Who is obviously dating Judy.
Yeah, they're together. Come on.
Kind of weird.
What, interspecies relationships?
Yeah.
Does it bug you out a little bit?
It doesn't bug me out, but like some of the how does it work and stuff we don't have to get into here.
No,
it's too weird.
We don't have to. No.
Right? I think it's supposed to be two polar opposites. It's like a dog and a cat getting together. I wonder if Lily would have. Well, no. I was gonna say maybe Lily would have turned into like a wolf or something. This is the opposite of a stag. I don't know what else would be, but I'm like, it'd just be redundant. Then you'd have 3 canines.
Mm-hmm. Man is like the only other thing I can think of. Well,
yeah.
I guess she could be like a lynx or something.
Yeah, I guess so. Some sort of big cat.
Bobcats kill deer all the time.
Mountain lion.
Mountain lion. There you go. That would work.
Maybe she turned into a goat. A lily goat.
Yeah, why not?
That's Aberforth's secret. Aberforth is Harry's father.
Oh. Oh.
That was the goat.
Oh, God.
It was Lily.
So, last time
we did not discuss disturbing questions about Aberforth and Harry's mother.
No.
This is why Harry's the goat.
Literally.
Yeah. Aberforth is his daddy.
Dan is not with you on this one. Biggs, no. Just no. Just no.
Just saying it's possible.
I don't know how you're in here in a sweater.
I'm cold. I don't know how you're hot right now.
I'm very warm.
Well, she's obviously very warm. She's very active. Yeah, Remus was feeling sorry for himself. Like, we read 2 chapters, and that was the premise of both of them. Sirius was feeling bad for himself again.
Yep, Remus felt bad for himself, and that was pretty much everything that happened, was that he just felt sorry for himself over things that are beyond his control.
And felt like no one could understand him.
Nope, no one knows what he's going through. Oh, Marlene McKinnon's brother got attacked by the werewolves or something.
That's right.
And he was like, I knew it was gonna happen. I could have done something. But
you could have asked your friends for help.
Yeah.
Like you said you would do after the last time this happened.
Yep.
And you didn't ask your friends for help.
Oh yeah, that's right. He felt guilty for what other people did. That decisions that other people made that were completely beyond his control. But he still felt guilty about it.
Because they happen to have the same werewolfism as him.
Yeah. So should we just start the next chapter and see if it gets any better?
Yeah, let's not, go too deep into this, because you get very angry about all this.
I do, because it sucks.
Yeah, every book has its dry spells. there's always those chapters where it's just kind of like a...
These aren't dry spells.
Stretch.
These are wells of depression that I don't want to get submerged in anymore. Hi, Melanie.
That's fair. Hey,
welcome,
Melanie.
welcome. Anytime you come to hang out is more than enough. Do not feel obligated to stay.
Happy to have you, but we know other things going on, and if you got another class at 7, I mean, why not?
We get it. I have a Pokemon size chart to get back to after we're done, so...
Oh, yeah.
We all have stuff we want to do.
Ooh, you know what you should have done? You should have done a bestiary, Harry Potter bestiary size chart.
I could still do that.
You could. I'm just saying, you just started this one. I don't want to,
Well, I've got the big cat one I started, but I mean, I've got lots of poster boards, so I could do a Harry Potter bestiary size chart.
I mean, it'd be pretty cool.
It would be. Oh, that was a lot less painful than I thought it was going to be.
Hey, Glenn.
Oh, hello, Glenn. Welcome.
I wonder what is the biggest... I mean, probably a dragon.
The Ukrainian iron belly, I think.
But the basilisk was pretty big.
Yeah, but...
I think in the book it's actually only 20 feet long.
Yeah, it's not...
depicted much bigger in the movie.
In the movie, it's way huge. Yeah, in the book, it's like... Yeah, it's not that big. And just from sheer mass size, I think the Ukrainian iron belly is the largest species of dragon. So I would think maybe it's the largest magical creature. But I'd have to look at the other animals again. Like, I don't know how big manticores are.
It's true.
I
mean, a boggart technically could be, depending on what your fear is.
That's true. I don't think I'd be able to put a boggart on there.
You just leave a blank space.
Just write boggart underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's how we would have to do it.
Or just draw a picture of your greatest fear.
I don't know what that is.
What are you most afraid of?
Heights, I guess.
I don't know how a boggart would represent that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Turn into a ladder.
Yeah, I don't know.
A very high step stool.
I don't know. Because I don't know what I'm, afraid of. I mean, I guess, something terrible happening to the pants.
There you go. Might get a little something.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to put that.
Either way, alright, we'll figure that out.
But the squid is not a magical creature. It's just a giant squid.
Are you sure it's not magical? I don't know any giant squids with the self-awareness that that giant squid has.
Or ones that like toast.
Yeah. I mean, technically is a magical creature because we know it's actually Godric Gryffindor.
Stuck in his animagus form?
Yes. It's some weird werewolf curse.
Actually, I wonder if giants are bigger than the Ukrainian iron belly. It does put Colin's brother back in the boat, and it eats toast.
And yes, Glenn, let's hope for some actual action. Or at the very least, some interesting stuff. Maybe some real, Marauder action, like pranks and stuff like that. Or even better, maybe they'll just run into Snape and the rest of the Slytherins.
Yes, let us see what's going to happen here.
Because all that happens off-page in the background, it seems. Because we're theorizing that's the reason why they all have so many detentions, even though we haven't seen them commit any crimes that would warrant detentions.
Yeah.
So they must be messing around with the Slytherins to get these.
Yeah, they must be doing some... I mean, Sirius did curse those kids in the last chapter, but it was just Let's dive in. Let's just see. All right, here we go. Chapter 133. 7th year. Sunday afternoon. Sunday, 29th January, 1978.
Mooney? It's after midday. So, thought you might fancy getting up?
No, thanks.
Can I come in? No. Okay then.
Sirius began to walk away and Remus's stomach flipped.
I'm sorry,
he said, loud enough for Sirius to hear and stop. Remus finally crawled out of the covers.
I do want you here. I just don't know what to say.
He could hear Sirius fidgeting, his hands in his pockets, then running through his hair. Finally,
we don't have to talk?
Remus sighed. He was a mess. He hadn't washed properly since Wednesday, and had only got out of bed to use the bathroom. The other boys had been feeding him by passing through food through the crack in his curtains, and if they hadn't, Remus wasn't sure if he'd eaten at all. He was in the worst state he'd ever been in, but he missed Sirius.
Okay then.
The curtains parted and Remus scowled against the bright daylight, but Sirius crawled in quickly, closing them again. He looked at Remus, but he didn't look too hard before shuffling down next to him and enveloping him in his arms.
Thanks,
he breathed against Remus's hair.
For letting me in. Reckon I must stink.
Sirius inhaled deeply, tickling Remus's forehead and making him squirm.
No, just smell like Mooney.
Gear off, mutt. Remus wiggled away from him.
Feel like getting up soon. Everyone's worried, and they're looking at me now, like I know what to do, because everyone knows about us, which is weird, and quite a lot of pressure, really.
Remus chuckled, and it felt strange, but good. Still, he had a melancholic episode to maintain.
I still don't feel like getting up. Okay, then you need to let me hide here with you, because I'm not going back out there. Sirius. Remus.
Sirius frowned at him, exaggerating his eyebrows to look stupid.
Stop it.
Remus folded his arms, aware that he was starting to sound like a sulky child.
I will not. Sirius poked him in the ribs. Come on, I know you're really feeling shit about everything, but did you ever consider that it's not for you to hog all the misery like this? Maybe if you talk to your friends, it might not seem quite so bleak.
Remus frowned up at him, arms still crossed.
Maybe that works for you. Are you saying this is working for you?
Remus pressed his lips together. They stared at each other for a minute. Remus began to think he'd quite like to fight Sirius now, like they did on full moons, just because it was a fun way to expel energy. Then he noticed something. He sniffed the air.
Are you bleeding? I can smell blood. Probably you from the moon. No, I've healed already. I've never had any open wounds longer than a day. Bloody hell, Sirius laughed lightly. How is it possible for you to get any cooler? And it's your blood, I can tell. There you go again, you're basically a superhero. Sirius! Okay.
He sat up, running his hands through his hair.
You swiped at me a few times over the moon. I told you that. We did it to each other. And you can't turn me when I'm a dog. We've tested that enough times. But you're still bleeding. It was almost a week ago. You need to go to Madame Pomfrey. Oh yeah, and say my werewolf boyfriend scratched me while I was in dog form as an illegal animagus. Jesus,
Remus groaned, hauling himself up and out of bed, grabbing Sirius by the wrist and pulling him along.
Where are we going? I need better light.
He yanked open the bathroom door and slammed down the lid of the toilet.
Sit,
he instructed. Sirius complied, half smiling. Remus opened the little mirror cabinet above the sink, digging out murtlap essence and disinfectant and gauze and cotton balls. He'd found over years of trial and error that a combination of magical and muggle things worked best, as with almost everything else. He pulled his wand out of his pyjama bottoms and stood in front of Sirius. Okay, show me. Sirius dropped his head, no longer enjoying Remus's newfound motivation. He sighed heavily and lifted his shirt, saying, It's not that bad. It wasn't as bad as Remus had feared, but it still made his stomach clench when he saw 3 dark red stripes across Sirius's ribs. They were starting to heal, but he knew he could fix it fairly easily. He took a deep breath, met Sirius's eye, and then reached for the disinfectant.
then his wand. Remus was pretty good at healing cuts now, and the scab and the redness were gone in an instant. Now they were just white stripes. "I'm so sorry," he said mournfully. "It was a magical wound. You'll have a scar there for the rest of your life now." Remus looked down at the mark, then up again. "That's fine, Remus," he said quietly. So Remus rejoined the group at Sirius's goading, and they were all kind enough to pretend he had merely been unwell and not avoiding them. The news over the past few days had been particularly grim. First, the Prophet had published a list of the dead and their photographs. Then they published a list of those presumed bitten, along with their photographs, which had provoked outcry among some of the more liberal commentators and ignited a debate on mandatory registration for all werewolves. Greyback's name had not been mentioned, nor any other werewolf that Remus was aware of. It was as if the horrific crime simply happened one night and the assailants had vanished into thin air. No one had heard from Marlene either, though Danny McKinnon was one of those named in the papers. He'd been given a full 4 inches of text by virtue of his celebrity as beater for the Chudley Cannons. The team's manager was interviewed and quoted saying that while he'd not yet been briefed on the details of Danny's condition, the Cannons operated a zero-tolerance policy to half-breeds and dangerous creatures and would deal with any allegations of infection accordingly. James vowed that he would never see a Chudley Cannons game again, but Remus mostly felt sorry for Danny. They tried to pull out all of this misery behind them and went down for Sunday lunch, and thank goodness, it was generally Remus's favourite meal of the week, and he'd have been even more blue if he missed it. Then spent the rest of the evening cosied up in the common room in front of the fire. Remus even acquiesced to a chess game with Peter, who was thrilled. "You know what we ought to start getting serious about?" Sirius mused, sorting through his record collection. "NEWTs?" Remus asked hopefully as Peter captured his knight. "Job applications?" Lily said from the armchair where she sat in James's lap, reading a magazine. "The Quidditch Cup?" James suggested. "For goodness sake," Sirius tutted. "I'm ashamed to call you all Marauders." "What?" All 3 of them frowned, offended. Peter chuckled. "He's talking about the big prank on Slytherin. You know, we started planning it before Christmas." "Worming boy, you are without a doubt my very favourite person." Sirius grinned broadly. Peter snorted. "Bugger off," and promptly captured Remus's queen. "Oh, I don't know why I bother. Haven't beaten you since I was 13, Remus sighed, leaning back on the rug on his elbows. He looked up at Sirius. "Well then, got a plan?" "Maybe. Whatever we do, I think we should focus on the attack. I think we should focus the attack on the dungeons." "Let's not throw words around like attack," Lily said hurriedly. "This is just a practical joke, right? In the wholesome spirit of harmless house rivalry?" "If you like," Sirius shrugged, half ignoring the interjection. "Anyway, Mooney, I thought your study group was in on this. What's the point in having all these minions if you can't make them work for you?" "Oh my God, for the last time, they aren't my minions." Remus rolled his eyes. "Anyway, we've not got a proper study group yet this term. I've been ever so slightly busy." "Well, as none of us are scheduled to be in mortal peril for the next month or so," Sirius replied, "I think we ought to get cracking. Everyone could do with a laugh, eh? Assemble the troops. We'll meet sometime next week."
"As long as it doesn't clash with Quidditch," James yawned. "I'm there." "Right, I'm off to bed. Transfiguration first thing." The others all glanced up at the clock or began to yawn themselves and agreed to follow suit. The common room was clearing out now anyway, and they were some of the last to leave. Remus had just got his pyjamas on and brushed his teeth when he remembered that he'd left his book downstairs. While this didn't usually matter, this particular book was Maurice by E.M. Forster, and though the cover was nondescript, he was a bit concerned that if someone picked it up and read the blurb, there would be some raised eyebrows. Sighing, he left the bathroom and hurried downstairs, muttering, "Getting my book," to Sirius, who was next in the queue. He'd just grabbed the book and was about to head back up when he heard the portrait hole slide open. He turned to see Mary enter. She was wearing a short, spangly silver dress, and she tripped on her way in, but caught herself and giggled. "All right," he called to her. She looked up, squinting a bit in the dim light.
"Hi, sexy," she grinned, wandering in a bit unsteady on her feet. Might have been 4-inch heels she was wearing, or it might have been the witch's brew Remus could smell wafting off of her. "Hello, been somewhere?" He walked back across the couches, wanting to make sure she was all right before leaving. "Phew." She waved a hand, collapsing into the nearest armchair, spreading her legs out. Her short dress rode up her thighs, but she didn't seem bothered. "Just a few drinks in the Ravenclaw common room." "Thought you were seeing a Hufflepuff." He was there." She exhaled, smiling, tilting her head back and closed her eyes. The lids were painted gold, finely rimmed with kohl. She looked like an Egyptian queen in a party frock. "But a lot of people were there, I suppose." She sounded sad. Remus sat down in the armchair opposite her, clutching the book in his lap. "Are you okay, Mary?" "Oh, fine." She opened her eyes slowly and smiled at him. She wasn't that drunk, he realised, but she looked tired and deeply unhappy. "Just stuff on my mind. Boys being wankers. Poor Marlene." "Have you heard from her?" Mary shook her head, then sat up, blinking. "Haven't got a fag, have you, sweetheart? I don't usually, but I just really fancy one." "Yeah." Remus reached in his pockets for his matchbox where he kept the cigarettes he'd rolled himself. He slid it open. "Normal or fun?" "Oh, fun, please," she purred, reaching over. "Might help me sleep." About Marlene," Remus said, lighting his own. "I just had a thought. You know her friend Yaz? Have you seen her about? I wasn't sure if anyone told her." "I did," Mary said, exhaling, watching Remus through the smoke beneath her heavy golden eyes. "I told her." "Oh!" Remus blinked, surprised. "That's good then." I thought she had better know," Mary mused, pulling a strand of her hair and winding it coyly round her finger. "Didn't want her to think Miles had gone cold on her." Remus took a quick, sharp puff on his cigarette, frowning very slightly. "What do you mean?" Mary laughed, arching back in the chair, showing her pearly white teeth. She let the curl of hair spring back into place like a corkscrew. "Oh, come on, Remus." She shook her head. "I know." She told you?" "No," Mary conceded, settling down with a sigh. "But I'm not thick, despite rumours to the contrary. At least I know what romance looks like." She arched her eyebrow. "I'm not as dense as James, for example. How long did he take to figure it out?" "He doesn't know about Marlene," Remus replied. "They must keep it quiet during Quidditch stuff." "I'm not talking about Marlene now. I'm talking about you." "Me?" "He's a good kisser, isn't he?" She winked at him. "But then, you were too, I seem to remember." "How?" I've suspected for a little while now. Just little things. All the time you two spend together. Him being single for more than 5 minutes. Wasn't 100% sure, but you've just confirmed it for me." "Bugger." She laughed again, a friendly, trilling sound. "Silly boy." She smiled affectionately, playing with her hair again as she smoked. She looked at him again, her eyes more focused. When she spoke, her voice was more serious than usual. "It's fine if you want to keep it quiet. I was going to wait to see if you told me yourself, like I'm doing with Miles. But I just want to let you know. I know I've got this reputation for being a bit of a big mouth, but I can keep a secret, okay? Especially for my friends. And," she bit her lip, "if there's anything else you're going to keep secret, Remus, then you can trust me, okay? It doesn't change anything." There was almost too many revelations for one evening. Remus sucked hard on his cigarette and half wished he'd opted for a spliff too. "What are you saying?" he asked very carefully. "Do you think you know something else?" "Remus," she sat up. "The scars, being ill every full moon. We do the same care of magical creatures class." "You can't tell anyone," Remus said, his voice very low, even though they were completely alone. "Please, Mary. Me and Sirius, that's one thing, but this? I could get kicked out of school. I could be arrested." "Hey!" Mary stood up quickly and came over to sit on the arm of the chair. I'm not going to tell. That's what I'm trying to explain. She wound an arm round his shoulder. Makes no difference to me. I swear. Really? Honestly. She kissed his cheek and gave him a squeeze. So don't take what happened to Marlene's brother so hard, huh? It's got nothing to do with you. She'd never forgive me if she knew, Remus said sadly. Mary handed him what was left of the joint and he puffed on it gratefully. Don't worry about that, she said flippantly. She'll come round. She knows who you really are. And maybe you could help. You could write to Danny even. I bet he could do with a friend. That's... Remus was about to say that while it was a really nice idea, it was almost impossible, considering the fact that he was unregistered, and it would be a bad idea to draw attention to himself. Moony, where are you? Sirius's plaintive voice came clattering down the stairs. I can smell the pot all the way from here. You're not being subtle. Oh, hiya, MacDonald. Black, Mary nodded, still perched on the arm of Remus's chair. Sorry, I'm trying to seduce your boyfriend. Oh, yeah, I'd like to see you... Wait, what? My what? She just poked out her tongue at him. He looked at Remus. Are we just telling everyone now? Oi! Mary hopped off the seat. I'm not everyone, arrogant tosser. Don't forget, I had you both first. Remus couldn't help laughing at the look on Sirius's face, and got out of the chair sheepishly, still clutching Maurice. Sorry, I'll come up now. We were just chatting. He looked back at Mary. Will you be okay? Fine, she nodded, smiling. I'm off to bed too. Night, lads. Good night. Back upstairs in the warm glow of their dorm room, Peter was already snoring softly behind his curtains, and James was sitting cross-legged on his bed, flipping through his Quidditch notebook. Thought we lost you, Moony, he whispered. Thought we lost you, Moony, he whispered cheerily as the two boys entered. Bumped into Mary. She's been at some party with the Ravenclaws. And see, this is what happens when you get stuck with the head boy and the head girl in your house, Sirius sighed, leaning back on his own bed. All the fun helps. All the fun happens elsewhere. Oh, stop whinging, James grinned, closing his book. We'll have more parties and you know it. Now go to bed like a good boy. Fine, Sirius yawned, falling backwards dramatically so that he disappeared through the heavy velvet hangings. Good night then, Remus started, making for his own bed, but Remus's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. Moony, he whispered softly from the shadows behind the veil. Remus bit his lip and glanced over at James, who looked away awkwardly and began to draw his own bed curtains across. Oh well, fuck it. Okay. Remus let Sirius pull him inside.
Daniel almost made me crack.
What?
It was like, I want more Clash of Kings. I refuse to be reasonable about this. Well, good news is...
He's going to eat a live hamster every day a new episode isn't released.
It's a good thing we have one for tomorrow.
We do. There will be a new episode up tomorrow.
It'll probably be up tonight. I just can't upload the video while we're streaming, so...
And I'll read some more. I'll read a couple chapters tomorrow.
It is a good John chapter, too. We get to meet another fiery character.
Yes, the next chapter is definitely a good one. It's definitely a good one.
And we are trying to get that done. We're trying to get this done, because we want to do different stuff in the live stream. Not that all the young dudes is bad or anything, but
we want to...
We've been doing it a hot minute.
We've been doing it a hot minute. We want to move on to new things, so yes. We
want to get done Clash of Kings because we're talking about doing some Tolkien.
We have been discussing,
yes. Game of Thrones.
We've been discussing doing some Tolkien, continuing with Storm of Swords, but trying to implement other projects at the same time. So that's why we're trying to get through all the young dudes here. Indeed. 50 more chapters of all the young dudes.
Hey, Maddie.
Hello, Maddie.
And do some more stuff for the live stream that's kind of like one-off things a week.
Yeah.
Maybe shorter fanfics and stuff.
shorter fan fictions, maybe some more character discussions.
Yeah.
Maybe a live Storm of Swords reading every once in a while.
I mean, that'd be cool.
Some live reading of books we're actually doing.
Well, I mean, if you've gotten through the trouble, don't let it stop you.
Don't waste good seasonings. Yeah, Maddie. This was like an okay chapter. I don't know.
Kind of an in-between.
It was an in-between. Basically, Mary knows
things.
everything. It was just a chapter to let everyone know that Mary knows all your secrets, Remus. And Sirius being like, okay, stop feeling sorry for yourself.
Sirius saying what we're all thinking.
Sirius literally saying what we're all thinking. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Talk to your friends when you're feeling blue.
Which would be a great moment to have if it hasn't happened twice before in the story.
Yeah. Any plans to read Dune in the future?
Well, you said you wanted.
I want to read.
You,
I would love. Yes,
about it.
I would love to read Dune. So, yes, we're gonna read Dune. We will read Dune. It's gonna happen.
I mean, depending on how much we're having going on, might even be. We'll just have to kind of like maybe do a breakdown of the chapters of that or something. We can just discuss the chapters.
Dune?
Yeah.
Well, we gotta prioritize and figure out what we want to do.
Yeah.
Next. I would like to actually read Dune and provide it as audiobook material. But there's only so many hours in the day.
That's what I mean.
But yeah.
That's ideal, but
we finished the first Game of Thrones book. We are working on the second A Song of Ice and Fire book. We're almost done with the second one, but what we're going to do is we'll start the third one, but we will go back and forth between the third book and something else, so we can have something else going on. What is Dune about?
Drugs. It's about drugs, Maddie.
Space drugs.
Space drugs. And giant space cartel wars for said space drug. Basically.
Spice. It's about a young aristocrat named Paul. His family gets sent to the planet Arrakis, which is the only planet in the Empire that produces the spice, and the spice is the drug of all drugs, and it is the most in-demand commodity in the Empire, and Paul's family is given control of spice production, and shit happens.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything else. Spice allows for faster than light travel. It allows for prescience. And withdrawal is deadly. So therefore, the spice must flow.
Always must flow.
It's actually really, really good. It's really, really good.
Mm-hmm. And the movie's actually really, really good.
The new movie was really, really good, and I guess production is starting on part 2.
Oh, they haven't started yet?
Well, they needed to get greenlit to even do part 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought they already got greenlit, but okay.
So we have done audio for the entire Harry Potter series, the Ice Dragon,
multiple fanfics.
Fanfictions.
This fanfic and Game of Thrones, Clash of Kings we're working on.
Yep.
I think that's about it. We might have done one or two other one-off books in there, but I can't really remember.
And I did read of Mice and Men, but that's not posted yet.
Yeah, that I just need to finish going through because
I have to read
some of the wording in it is really weird, and I can't tell if you like kind of stumbled over your words or if that's how it's supposed to sound.
Right.
So
So,
we gotta clean up that. But other than that, yeah, that'll be up soon.
and I did just order a copy of The Jungle Book. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you read Ramona too.
I did read. I read the first Ramona book. I should finish the rest of them. I am literally sweating. I don't know how you're cold because I am sweating. Not that everyone else needed to know that information. Sorry, guys. But yeah, Dune is really good.
Reaction video for Dune on the Dunes. I like it.
Very nice. Dan, no. I'm not old enough for that yet. I am not old enough for that yet.
Dune.
Yeah, Dune is...
Well, no. Dune is 5 books?
There's 6 Dune books altogether. Dune is book 1.
Yeah.
And then it's Dune, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune, and Dune Chapter House.
I was gonna say, I think you've read like 4 of them so far. I've only read the first.
I've read the first 3. I have to read the next one, which is the one I really, really want to read, but I need to be in the right headspace to digest everything in that book. And I need to finish the Silmarillion before I read anything else. So I'm still not done with that yet. So I haven't had any time to read, like, for myself.
I pretty much finished the Witcher series in my personal time. I read Lost World finally, Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
Then a few non-fictions.
Are they as good as Harry Potter?
Wait, are Dune books
As good as Harry Potter?
Ooh, that's a hard comparison because they're like very different.
They're so different. I don't know that...
Sci-fi versus fantasy, you're talking about like...
I would compare the Dune series more to Lord of the Rings than I would to Harry Potter.
It's very political.
It's very political. It's very philosophical.
If you find Lord of the Rings interesting and Game of Thrones interesting, but you want kind of the politics of those two in a sci-fi setting, Dune's your choice.
Yeah. I feel like comparing it to Harry Potter is apples and oranges. I feel like it's a safer comparison to say it's more like a Song of Ice and Fire or Lord of the Rings. And they're very, very good. I really like them. I think I like Harry Potter just better because it's Harry Potter and I love Harry Potter so much. But they're just very different. Melanie Lee, that is awesome that you did not have hot flashes. You are lucky. Read all the Dune books. Didn't like the last few. I feel like God Emperor is very... People either really love that one or they hate that one.
Wasn't the last few actually written by Frank Herbert's son?
No.
No?
So Frank Herbert wrote the first 6, then he died.
Mm.
And then the books after are everything that his son wrote.
Oh, see, I thought he read up to wrote up to 4 or something like that, then died. Then his son went off his manuscripts or notes or something and finished them.
No.
Okay.
I don't know as I would even say Potter is kids' books. I think Potter is classic literature. That's
the thing. Like, the first couple of books are kids' books, though. I think that's some of the appeal. It helps kids get into it, but it's also one of those where
I think
as an older reader, it's super quick to get through and easy to get to know the characters.
I think Potter is a little bit different because as Harry matures, the books mature. Whereas you get something like Lord of the Rings or Dune, it is what it is out on the outset. right out of the gate, it was geared towards adults, whereas Harry Potter is you're reading the journey of a child growing into a man. It's just different. It's just different.
But I agree that yes, Dune is definitely more adult than Harry Potter.
Yeah, I would agree, Melanie. There's plenty in Harry Potter for adults. I don't like to paint Harry Potter as children's literature because I really don't think it should be classified in that way.
But honestly, if you're not to say the politics of it, but you're a sci-fi fan, you should definitely read Dune because basically every sci-fi movie past that has referenced it in one way or another.
Everything sci-fi that's come out after Dune, for sure.
It's kind of like fantasy always has something of Tolkien in there. You can find something that kind of references Tolkien.
Yep. You'll find something that references Dune in sci-fi, for sure.
He's the sci-fi's Tolkien.
But yeah. Dune is not quite as adult as Game of Thrones, but
that's true. It's not.
I think it's very adult in a different way. A Song of Ice and Fire is a lot more violent and graphic and disturbing. Dune is a lot more philosophically dense.
Yeah.
I think. So they're both very adult, but just in very different ways.
Did you read The Cursed Child? I did not.
I did read The Cursed Child. Not for the channel, but I read it.
And you weren't a fan, were you?
It's not canon. Just like Fantastic Beasts is not canon.
So difficult. You're just such a purist when it comes to Harry Potter.
There are 7 books. That is it. Listen, I'm not so much of a purist as with anyone else. Or any other fandom. Just Tolkien is from another time. It's like reading the Bible in St. James's. Yeah, Tolkien would not get published today.
No.
Tolkien would not get published today. He's archaic in some ways, but I mean that's part of what I like about Tolkien.
But you would think that as a writer, he probably would have wrote appropriately for the times.
He did.
He wrote appropriately for the time of his writing. He probably would have changed some things.
If he was a writer today, the verbiage would just be different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not sure what verdwib means. I thought they meant verbiage. Should I start the next chapter?
Yeah, why not? Let's
All right. Chrissy, like I said, it's not canon. I hated it. There are 7 books. That's it.
Okay.
And Beetle the Bard. That is literally canon.
Yeah.
So.
Though, if you do want a good children's book written by J.K. Rowling, that's not Harry Potter.
The Christmas Pig.
Christmas Pig, wherever it is on our shelf. I'm pretty sure it's up there somewhere. I don't see it right now, but it's up there.
It's next to the illustrated Game of Thrones over there.
The cat on me, I can't stand up.
Oh no!
Hyperion.
Ukraine fell.
Yes.
Yes, Dan. Illustrated Game of Thrones.
The Christmas Pig. It's a great little kids book by J.K. Rowling. And it's just like a casual story. I didn't mind it.
I haven't read it yet. Like I said, I've been trying to read the Silmarillion for what seems like forever now. Not because it's difficult or anything. I'm actually very much enjoying it. It's just having the time to sit down and read
Think
it.
of the modern day Nutcracker. It's more or less what it is.
Okay.
It's her take on the Nutcracker.
The Nutcracker? Mm. Yes, Dan. Illustrated Game of Thrones. It exists. It is good. We need the rest of them.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the next one, shall we? Oh, God. I need to be open-minded about this. Maybe this won't be a bad chapter.
What's the title?
Valentine's Day.
Ooh la la.
Yeah.
Romantic. Maybe Remus and Sirius are finally going to be completely open about their relationship.
I'm just a little over their romance a little bit. I'm not feeling it anymore. All right. Don't talk about that right now. Read the chapter. Maybe it won't suck.
Go into it with an open mind. Optimistic.
PMA.
What?
PMA.
PMA?
Positive mental attitude.
Oh, okay.
Chapter 134. 7th year. Valentine's Day. 1978. You think I'm a lame duck, but I don't give a blue fuck. So you leave me like crazy, drive me to be lazy. I love you, you big dummy. I love you, you big dummy. Melanie's like, I'll stay. Monday, 13th of February, 1978. You know, Lily yawned, other boyfriends might take the night before Valentine's Day to plan something nice for their girlfriends, rather than an assault on other students. Thought we were calling it a practical joke, Evans, Sirius winked. Anyway, how do you know what other boys are doing? We're the only boys you know, and we're doing this. Touché. Lily poked her tongue out at him from where she sat cross-legged on James's bed. And, James said, sitting on the floor beside Remus, folding envelopes as fast as Sirius could stuff them, how do you know I haven't already planned something nice? When do you have the time? She shrugged. Whenever you're not with me, you're playing Quidditch. I can multitask, he said haughtily, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. Remus gave James a sideways glance. He couldn't account for any of James's free time either, but it was best never to underestimate James Potter. How about you, Pete? Mary asked, sitting on James's other side, neatly stacking the envelopes he handed for her and ticking the names off the list. Big plans tomorrow? No, Peter replied glumly. He was sitting on his stomach on his bed, frantically completing the charms notes due for the next day. He dropped a few hints to Remus about copying them, but Remus had pretended not to understand, and eventually poor Wormtail had dropped it and just resigned himself to doing a poor job. What about Dorcas? Mary pressed. Dumped me. Oh, poor love, she cooed. At least I won't be the only single one. Really? Peter looked up, hopefully. Yeah, dumped that stupid Hufflepuff, Mary nodded, bent over her work. Oh, well, if you fancied dinner, maybe, Peter started. Mary shook her head. Oh no, sorry, Pete. I'm triple booked as it is. It'll be a miracle if none of them bump into each other. Oh, Peter returned to his homework, looking even more depressed than before. Mary stifled a giggle, but Lily stifled a giggle, but Mary seemed oblivious. Cheer up, Pete. We still love you, Remus offered, stuffing his very last envelope and handing it to James. Me and Padfoot will have dinner with you. So basically the same exactly the same as every other night of the year, Sirius teased. You two not doing anything then? Mary asked casually. It felt like a loaded question all the same, and Remus found it hard to ignore the glances his friends were now shooting at each other. He looked up at Sirius and said very firmly, Don't even think about it. Sirius's face cracked into a smile. I think Valentine's Day is Mooney's idea of hell. Exactly, Remus nodded solemnly. Let the girls have flowers and hearts. He had plenty else going on, thank you very much. Oh, I think that's a shame,
Mary said, crossing the last name off her list and stretching her legs out on the rug, lying back on her elbows. Valentine's Day can be nice if you do it right. Remus smirked at her. Doing it right to Mary meant receiving votive offerings from her various acolytes, a fantasy in which she was Aphrodite and all would pay homage. Nope, not interested, he said, stretching his own stiff legs. Sirius likes it, Mary said slyly. He was always dead romantic. When we weren't fighting, Sirius interjected. Remus looked at him and realised he'd never actually considered whether or not the other boy was interested in celebrating the day. He just assumed they were on the same page. Anyway, that was different, Peter mused, sucking the nib of his quill and getting ink on his lip. What was? Mary asked. When Padfoot was going out with you, Peter replied. Obviously he did all the mushy stuff then. Obviously? Lily spoke up. Remus cringed. He could see where this was going. The redhead had her hackles up. It didn't happen often, but when it did, it always ended in a scolding. What do you mean, Peter? Peter saw it coming too, but bless him, he tried to explain himself. I wasn't being nasty, he said. It's just, well, it's not the same thing, is it? Yes, it is, Mary frowned. James was clearly annoyed too. Remus sighed inwardly. He looked up at Sirius, who shrugged at him. Remus held out his hand, and Sirius hopped off the bed to take it, pulling Remus to his feet. Remus cleared his throat. If you've all finished discussing your relationship amongst yourselves... They all looked up sheepishly. Sorry, Moony. Sorry, Remus. Let's move on, shall we? Remus raised an eyebrow and leaned against his bedpost with his hands in his pockets. He nodded at the pile of sealed envelopes. We need to pass those round tomorrow as soon as... I think probably best to do it at breakfast so it gets mixed in with the regular post and doesn't look suspicious. This was met with a murmur of general agreement. Don't forget the ink only becomes legible when the right person gives their name, Remus continued. He went over to his bedside table for his matchbox of cigarettes and slid one out. This was such a good idea. I can't believe you did it so quickly, Mary said. She didn't know that the spell they used was exactly the same as the one on the Marauders map, and they weren't going to tell her. You are in the presence of greatness, MacDonald, Sirius said, taking Remus's cigarette the second he'd lit it. Remus sighed and pulled out another. At least open a window if you're going to have a smoke in here, James sighed. We have to smoke in here, Sirius said, flicking his wand at the windows so they flung wide open. Because our poxy head boy banned smoking in the common room. All the prefects voted on that, actually, Lily said wryly. See, Moony? Sirius nudged him with his hip. This is why you should have stayed a prefect. You could have been the voice of dissent. Truly tragic, Remus exhaled smoke. Right, I'm off to bed then, Mary said, getting up, lifting the pile of invitations and setting them down on James's trunk. I'm looking forward to this. Be nice to have something else to think about. I'll come with you, Lily said, getting up too. Shall I walk you back? James leapt to his feet. Both girls giggled as if he'd said something charming rather than ridiculous. I'll keep us safe in the arduous journey across the common room, Potter, Mary teased. Still, Lily and James spent much of the next 5 minutes bidding each other goodbye, which involved a lot of snogging. When Mary finally managed to drag her friend away, Lily was pink and grinning. Love you, she called on her way down the stairs. Love you too, James called back. Sirius began to make sick noises, which made Peter start laughing, but Remus just watched James's dopey expression. He hadn't heard them say I love you before. He didn't think he'd ever heard anyone say it, actually. Not anyone he cared about, anyway. He'd seen it written down, in books and in the letter from Hope, but neither of those things had felt as tangible as this. How long had they been saying that? As long as they'd been feeling it? Was it hard to say the first time? Remus thought it must be, like casting a Patronus. He finished his cigarette in a contemplative mood while the others moved round him, finishing homework and changing for bed. He supposed he could ask Sirius about the whole love thing, but he wasn't sure he wanted to open that can of worms. They were happy as they were, weren't they? It was just getting comfortable now that their friends knew. Plus, after 2 years of pining and almost a year of secrecy, Remus just wanted to enjoy what they had, without all of the prescriptive stuff hanging about them. Remus knew from experience that it was best to resist the temptation to pick things like that apart, especially something as precious and hard-won as he and Sirius had. The problem was, once you started, you might never remember how it worked in the first place. He brushed his...
Honked outside.
Okay. He brushed his teeth, still thinking, and wandering towards Sirius's bed to sit and wait.
Bailey. Maybe he's done? No. So again, picked up on the mic. I think it will. Alright, let me go see what Bailey's doing.
Dog barking. Yep, dog barking.
Jackson just got comfortable too.
Yep, go figure. Do you want to just keep going?
He brushed his teeth, still thinking, and wandered towards Sirius's bed to sit and wait for him. "Finished!" Peter cried, raising his quill with a flourish. "Finally!" "Well done, Pete," James yawned, climbing into bed. "I didn't get to help you lot, though," Peter said, looking at the pile of envelopes wistfully. "That's okay, this is only preliminary work," Remus offered. "The real planning starts on Wednesday." "Exactly," James said encouragingly. "Anyway, don't feel bad. Padfoot didn't help either." "Oi!" Sirius came out of the bathroom at that moment. "I wrote the damn things. Where would you lot be without my beautiful penmanship? And I don't recall Mrs. Prongs doing anything either." He'd taken to calling Lily this in private. He wouldn't dare to her face, with the full knowledge that it annoyed James. The messy-haired boy just rolled over in bed, flicking his middle finger in Sirius's direction. Sirius chuckled and got into his own bed. Remus got in too, still deep in thought. "Night, lads," Sirius called, drawing the curtains shut. "Night," Peter and James echoed back. In the dark, Sirius held Remus's hand and they smiled at each other sleepily. "You're very quiet," Sirius whispered. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," Remus whispered back. "Just thinking. Prank stuff." "Good." "Sirius?" "Remus?" "You know Valentine's Day?" "Heard of it." "Do you want to, what Mary said?" "I knew that would get you wound up. I could practically see your brain starting to overheat." "Piss off." Remus kicked his shin. "I'm just asking." "Mary loved all that stuff. Presents and flowers and cards and shit. I like doing it for her because it made her happy. You'd hate it, so I won't." "It's just so public," Remus said. "I know, don't worry about it." "Okay." "Remus." "What?" "Stop worrying." Fine, I believe you. Anyway, it's not a real thing," Sirius said thoughtfully. "Valentine's Day. I looked it up." "It's real to muggles, isn't it?" Remus frowned. He couldn't say he'd given it much thought. "There was a bloke called Valentine, but there's nothing romantic about it. But I did find some other stuff about the Romans." "Why can't you apply this thirst for knowledge to your actual schoolwork?" "Oh, don't be so boring. Anyway, have you ever heard of the Lupercalia?" Remus felt a sinking feeling in his stomach and let go of Sirius's hand. "I don't want to talk about wolf stuff right now." "You have heard of it?" Sirius sounded pleased. "No, I just know it's Latin for wolf because it's my bloody name." "Oh, right. It's not what you think. It's a festival." "Okay. And it's really cool. There are blood sacrifices and running around naked and..." "I'm going to sleep." "But you like history." "Shut up, Padfoot. He wants to go to sleep," James shouted from across the room. "And so do I." "Yeah," Peter echoed. "Mind your business," Sirius shouted back. "Sonoro quiesis," Remus muttered, creating a dry bubble of silence inside the bed. He still whispered when he spoke, though, because it was weird to talk in a normal volume in the dark. I said I didn't want to talk about the wolf stuff. God. I was only trying to make you feel better about Valentine's Day. I didn't feel badly about it in the first place. Okay, sorry I misread you, Sirius was whispering too, but loudly, obviously annoyed. You were all quiet about it, and I wanted to cheer you up. I thought you were jealous about Lily and James. Jealous? That's the wrong word. You were just... I saw you watching them, kissing and stuff, and being all mushy. And I know you hate public displays of affection, but I don't know. It's not like we have a choice either way. Remus blinked in the dark, rolling back over to see Sirius's face. It bothers you, doesn't it? It had to, because it had never bothered Remus before. Suddenly, he realized what it had all been about. A bit, maybe, Sirius replied honestly. Remus fumbled under the duvet for his hand again. Tuesday, 14th of February, 1978. The next morning, James and Sirius were nowhere to be found. Remus presumed they'd left early for Quidditch practice. It was a bright sunny day, despite a chill in the air. After a few minutes of deep thought, Remus rifled in his bedside drawer for his very last chocolate frog and bunged it in his pocket before heading downstairs. The rest of the Gryffindors woke to find that in the night the house elves had decorated their common room with garlands of red and pink purple paper hearts, something which seemed to divide all of the students. Hardly appropriate in a school, Christopher mumbled, meeting Remus and Mary on their way out of the portrait hole. I think it's lovely, Mary sighed cheerily. She was subtly dressed for the occasion, wearing a red ribbon in her hair and red enamel studs in each earlobe. Christopher shook his head grimly at her. If it were a proper holiday, like Christmas or Easter or something. But why do wizards celebrate those things? Remus cut in thoughtfully as they progressed toward the dining hall. Every corridor was also decked out in pink and red crepe paper, and there seemed to be music coming from somewhere. None of the purebloods I've met are Christians or even know anything about Jesus or the Easter Bunny or... The Easter what? Christopher was staring at him as if he were mad. Don't bother, Remus, Mary laughed. Lily and I tried back in first year. We're not supposed to ask. Christopher's mood did not improve as they entered the great hall, which was bathed in a rosy pink glow by a collection of candles floating inside red glass lanterns. Fresh flowers had been placed in vases on every table, and pink envelopes flew back and forth over the heads of the students, Valentine's cards looking for their recipients. Oh, for goodness sake, Christopher muttered, taking his seat and pouring himself a very black coffee. It's only one day, Remus said, lifting the teapot, which was also pink. No sooner had they sat down than a pile of pink envelopes fluttered into Mary's lap, making her squeal with delight. Remus grinned too. He pulled out his own envelopes and whispered an incantation, tossing them into the air so that they mingled with the others flying above them. Here you go, Chris. Remus tossed one across the table. It's not a Valentine, I promise. Oh, what is it? Christopher held the blank envelope warily. An invitation, Remus winked. Give it your name, but don't share it, okay? Okay. Morning, Lily appeared, looking cheerful as usual, clutching a book on advanced potions. Anyone seen Potter? Quidditch pitch? Remus raised his head. No, Lily shrugged. I thought so too, but Ravenclaw booked it this morning. He and Padfoot were gone when I woke up, Remus said. That's exactly what I was afraid of, Lily replied, taking her seat. No sooner had she sugared her porridge than a loud pop echoed over their heads, and everyone looked up. Those students who hadn't immediately dived for cover beneath their breakfast tables began oohing and ahhing as a rather spectacular fireworks display began over their heads. The burst of colour took the form of gigantic glittering love hearts, and the embers which rained down turned out to be pink and white flower heads. Lilies! Mary said gleefully as one settled on her pile of cards. Oh no, Christopher wailed. I'm allergic. He sneezed before aiming his wand upwards and gasping, Protego!
That That was... Did you plan that?
No.
That was absolutely gold.
Protego! To defend himself against the fluttering blooms. I don't believe this. Lily was blushing harder than Remus had ever seen her. He grinned. You were asking for it, I'm afraid. I'd have been happy with a card, she hissed as the final fireworks died out and the last of the lilies sailed to the floor like great pink snowflakes, filling the room with their lovely scent. Oh, shut up, Evans, Mary tutted. It's bloody gorgeous of him. Cheers, MacDonald. James appeared at Lily's shoulder with Sirius. You utter idiot! Lily stood up and wound her arms round James's neck, kissing him. Remus wasn't watching this display, though. He was watching Sirius, who flicked his wand behind James's back. The flowers which had gathered on the table, those which Chris had not tried to clear anyway, began to move again and gathered together in front of Lily's plate. With another soft little pop, the pile transformed into a large box emblazoned with even more lilies. What's that? Lily turned, leaning over to get a closer look. Open it and see. James was grinning ear to ear, clearly chuffed with himself. Christopher sneezed again and blew his nose, but was roundly ignored as Mary and Remus stood up to get a better look. Lily, still pink and smiling, carefully lifted the lid of the box and everyone leaned in. On a red velvet pillow, with a bow round its neck, was a tiny little charcoal grey kitten with huge yellow eyes. Oh! Lily gasped, reaching immediately to pick up the mewing creature and cuddle it close. Really, Potter? You got me a cat? I love him. Or her? Him, James nodded. I know your old family one died last Christmas, and Hagrid told me a litter was born in the village last week, so... Oh, he's so sweet! Mary reached over to stroke the kitten's head. Oh, for Merlin's sake! Christopher stood up, clutching his handkerchief to his nose. I'm allergic to cats too! Bloody stupid day! With that, he got up and stormed away further up the table. Such a shame, Sirius smirked, taking his empty seat. Morning, Moony. Morning, Padfoot. Remus smiled. The rest of breakfast was spent cooing over Lily's new kitten and trying to choose a name. Remus kept a polite distance just in case. He had bad experiences with cats in the past and didn't fancy any new scratches today, no matter how tiny its claws were. Soon everyone was getting up to go to their various lessons, while arguing over who ought to look after the kitten that morning, and Sirius fell into step with Remus. Walk you to history? He offered. Oh, I don't need to go, Remus replied slyly. It's drop-in lesson for any WTs. But you always go to your lessons, Sirius replied. Even the optional ones. I know, but you're always telling me to relax, so... Remus covertly pulled his little matchbox out of his robe pocket and tapped it. Sirius raised an eyebrow. As much as I really love Stoned Moony, what's brought on this rebelliousness? Does there have to be a reason? Remus shrugged. He glanced round quickly to check that no one was listening too intently, but they were all pretty absorbed in their various gifts and cards. He slipped the chocolate frog into Sirius's pocket. Happy Valentine's Day, wanker. He'd never seen Sirius Black blush like that.
Aww. You really got very immersed in there, that story. Sneezing, just as Chris does.
What can I say?
And yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Dan. Are they alluding to the theory that Crookshanks was the Potter's cat? Is this baby Crookshanks?
It's a gray cat, so no.
I thought they said red.
Charcoal gray cat.
Oh. Well, what happens to this cat? Because they're supposed to have a red cat in the stories.
Maybe it stays at Lily's mom's house.
Maybe.
Or maybe something awful is going to happen to it, in which case I will hate this story forever.
Yeah, I agree. Don't bring a kitty in just to kill it off or mortally wound it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right? I thought that was kind of like a cool little thing if it was a red cat.
No,
It
said it was
baby
charcoal
Crookshanks.
gray.
And I was half expecting Remus to be like, "Oh, cats don't like me," and then James be like, "It's okay, it's an easel."
Oh, right. I mean, that would have been cool.
Our one mention of Hagrid, though.
Yeah, right. We got a little Hagrid in there.
So Hagrid does hang out with James, or at least talk to him enough to be like, "Oh, hey, yeah, by the way."
I would think he would probably talk to James anyway, because James is always going down to the Quidditch pitch and stuff, and Hagrid has to maintain that, so I'm assuming they chat.
That's true. Okay, fair enough.
Like, maybe James gets down to the Quidditch pitch early enough in the morning to where, like, Hagrid is painting the lines by the goalposts or something, when they chat.
Does Hagrid have to do that, though?
He's a groundskeeper.
I know, but how much groundskeeping do you have to do? I'm sure there's like a spell that just makes the grass stay a certain length for forever.
He's not supposed to do magic.
He's not supposed to, but
Well, maybe he does. Dumbledore probably is just doing this about it.
Maybe. And then like a permanent sticking charm with some of the white line paint and stuff.
I don't know.
Never
Maybe there's
watched
others. I'm sure there's stuff he has to do, because even with those spells, I'm sure you have to come back and like recast the spell.
Maybe. Well, not the permanent sticking charm. It's in the name. Permanent.
Do you realize you read Harry Potter books like a person trying not to read Harry Potter books with an English accent? Do you realize you read Harry Potter books like a person trying not to read Harry Potter books with an English accent? No. I just read them. No.
Not to read. Yeah, I don't know. Did you realize that?
No, I did not realize that, I guess.
Oh, congratulations, Glenn, getting your new kitten
Oh,
tomorrow.
that's exciting. That is very exciting. That is always fun.
That's how the train of the school changes between second and third years.
Oh, it's Hagrid.
Does it change?
Yeah. In the movies, it does.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just canon, like something changed. Like,
no,
I don't remember any.
Hagrid's hut is in like a totally different position. The bridge.
Oh yeah, I mean I remember that.
Yeah. I think
I pointed that out.
I think that's what Dan is referring to. Is how it all is just totally different.
Because I was like, why is the pumpkin patch over there?
Yeah.
And okay, maybe, he shifts the patch to keep the ground fresh and the nutrients, so he doesn't
saturate the ground.
Yeah. But then the trees are in a different spot.
Yeah.
It's Forbidden Forest, like a moving forest, always shifting.
The campus is flat the first 2 years and super hilly in the third and beyond because Hagrid got excited with groundskeeping. Sure, why not? I guess that can explain it a little bit.
It got hilly because Hagrid had to bury a lot of his pets.
So many spiders died. You have this voice. Okay.
You have the voice. Well, we were just talking about Dune. You have the voice.
I have the voice. Yep.
There you go. You're a Bene Gesserit.
I'm a Bene Gesserit. Yep. I'm trained in the weirding way.
I always think it's funny because in sci-fi, you have all these crazy, weird places and things and creatures have all these weird names, but the main characters always have the most plain names. Star Wars, Luke. Dune, Paul. I can't really think of many others, but then you have other people like Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know?
Jabba the
Boba
Hutt.
Fett, but our main character,
Luke.
But then I'm trying to think. Dune, actually, all the characters tend to just have regular names.
Leto. Ganima.
Duke Leto, though, that's yeah, I guess so.
Well, it's Paul and Jessica.
Yeah.
Vladimir.
Yeah, so
those
all
are like
regular names.
normal names, not like.
I don't know. I think with fantasy they try to change up the names a little bit more than sci-fi. Sci-fi, it's like I'm gonna construct this world. I don't really care what the characters' names are. They're gonna be cool as hell.
His name's
That's
gonna
all
be,
that matters.
His name's gonna be Dave.
Just waiting for a like Star Wars spin-off. This is your main character, Dave.
Yep. Well, do you ever watch that show, Chad Vader, Night Supervisor?
No.
Oh my god, you've never watched that?
No.
Oh my god. It was on YouTube. It's about this guy, Chad Vader. He's like Darth Vader's cousin or something, and he's the night shift manager at a supermarket. It's hilarious. Oh my god, it's so funny.
I'll check that out.
Oh,
Yes,
it's so good.
You're the Dovahkiin.
Oh,
Fusro
da. That's so that readers can readily identify with the main character with a simple, familiar name. That makes sense. Also, Melanie, do you think it's a coincidence that the main character in Dune is named Paul, the main character in Star Wars is named Luke, and both of them are apostles?
At the same time, I mean, I'm sure having like a normal name, a lot of kids were like stoked because their names were Luke too.
Yeah.
And then they got a little older and they got sick of it because all the other kids would come up to him, Luke, I am your father.
When I first heard you reading Harry Potter, I thought you were English, and I'm English. Ah, what a compliment. Hey, very cool.
I remember a comment we got a long time ago was, they said they listened to the whole thing, and then all of a sudden you were speaking in an English accent, and it like freaked them out.
Oh, like, and it might...
Went to the discussion, and you were just
speaking
yeah.
And it freaked them out.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Yeah, American accent.
Oh my gosh. It is so hot in here.
Alright, I don't...
Feel my forehead.
I believe you. But I do not share this feeling.
I'm just saying.
I have this on because I'm chilly. I'm also wearing shorts, though, so there's that.
You know, but wearing pants shouldn't affect it that much. Maybe Luke. Paul? Why not?
Yeah, Paul.
I'm just saying, they're both apostle names. They both have some very intense Messiah imagery.
That's true.
Is that an accident? I don't think so.
I'm just saying. Then you get, like, Lord of the Rings, Bilbo, Frodo. I get, well, Sam, but Samwise, Gamgee.
Gandalf.
Didn't I say Gamgee?
Sounded like you said Ganji.
Oh. Ganges River.
Ganges River, yeah. If you want a rather new artist author, you should look into Kelly Armstrong. I'm going to think of other big characters that are the same name as the Apostles. Oh, there you go.
Hey. Yeah, let's see how many kind of reference that. See what connections we can make. That'd be interesting.
There's probably lots.
What type of books does Kelly Armstrong write? Is she like a fantasy writer, a sci-fi, romance?
Right? I forgot what I was going to say.
I don't know. Was it about sci-fi? Was it about Dune?
Dune.
I don't remember if I ever left. Was that in a? No, that wasn't a live stream, so it is out there.
Yeah,
okay.
it's out there somewhere.
Like, did I edit that out? Will anyone get that reference?
I can't remember what I was gonna say.
I don't know. I guess. Was it about romance books? Sci-fi romance?
No.
Sci-fi romance. What's with, like, Star Trek? Like, they would just hook up with alien people. Like, it was nothing.
Bitten was one of her best. Werewolves, magic, supernatural beings in general, depending on which book. Oh, okay.
Oh, all right.
So a variety of things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always
Sounds
interested
like a
in checking
mixture of
something
things.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bitten. Why does that sound familiar to me?
Because you are, like, obsessed with that show Something Bit Me right now.
I finished it last night.
You did?
Yep.
You just started it.
I watched all the episodes.
Damn.
There was an episode where a man and his girlfriend were kayaking in the Keys.
Mm-hmm.
And a barracuda launched itself out of the water and, like, hit the girl in the back and punctured a hole, like, this big in her back. And her, like, lung was, it obliterated her rib completely and punctured a hole in her lung.
That was on River Monsters. Remember when he was
No!
in the Florida Keys?
This is a different story.
Oh.
This is a different story.
So it's just common they do that.
They'll leap out of the water, yeah.
Yeah, I know they would, but I didn't realize that it was like
But this one was
so commonplace.
This one was huge, and there you go. Yeah, Jon Snow, like yeah, there you go, like John the Gospel writer. There you go. Yeah, and it obliterated her rib cage, punctured her lung, and her lung was, like, coming out of the hole in her back. The only reason she survived was her boyfriend, like, put his hand there to, like, cover the hole, to, like, keep her lung from, you know.
Ugh.
Yeah. That was one of the wildest incidents that... Then there was another lady who got attacked by Africanized killer bees. That one was not as dramatic as a barracuda punched a hole in your chest.
I'm scared to go swimming with barracuda.
I think barracuda are more dangerous than sharks. Just saying.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree.
I was trying to write a story, but haven't worked on it in a long time. But the high-power character is named Matthew. Sorry, off topic, but are you reading Lord of the Rings first or The Hobbit? We had a debate about this. I said we should read The Hobbit first and then read Lord of the Rings. But then you felt the other way about it, so...
I thought it was the opposite. Because I'm down to read The Hobbit first. Chronological
I
order.
said let's read The Hobbit first, and then read Lord of the Rings. All right, so we're on the same page. So we'll read Kayla. We'll read The Hobbit first.
I think it was someone in our chat was like, "No, Lord of the Rings first."
Yeah. What? Do they not want me to do Riddles in the Dark? I just want to read Riddles in the Dark. That's the only part of the book I will like. That's why I want to read it first. What has it got in its pockets? It's precious.
I know, that's pretty great.
You take turns reading in a chapter from Lord of the Rings, then The Hobbit. I also think that there's probably a lot of biblical names in A Song of Ice and Fire that George Martin has modified to fit his linguistic style of Westeros.
Hmm.
Aaron Damphair is the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Because his name is Aaron, but it's spelled differently. He's a priest.
Yeah, like so many of the names are just spelt differently or pronounced differently.
Peter Baelish.
Like Catelyn instead of Caitlin.
Yeah. Lysa.
Eddard instead of Edward.
Eddard, yep. Brynden. The Targaryens, forget it. They're just their own thing. Stannis.
Star Wars is based on the Bible? Yes.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very much the Bible.
Yeah. And since we're talking about Lord of the Rings is insanely biblical.
I think Lord of the Rings is interesting because it's biblical, but it's also Norse, but it pulls from so many sources.
That's true.
Because Tolkien was trying to create his a mythology for the English, pretty much. He was trying to create what Norse mythology is to Scandinavia for the English.
He pretty much did that.
He did. Like, the Silmarillion is pretty much the Bible of his world, and it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, there are people that are so entrenched in Tolkien's works, it's like a religion for them.
Yeah, kind of.
And honestly, to understand everything that's in there, you need to treat it like a religion.
There's a lot, yeah. There is a lot. Like, just reading the Silmarillion, there is a lot that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Kayla, we're not sure when we would start Lord of the Rings. We probably won't start Lord of the Rings at least until after we finish reading A Clash of Kings.
Or All the Young Dudes.
Or All the Young Dudes, yeah.
Which we're trying to finish as fast as possible.
Yes.
Because we feel like we've been on it a while, and there's a lot more we want to read during these live streams and stuff.
Yeah, we
can't just, like, stop reading it now that we're so far in.
Yeah, we're trying to wrap up All the Young Dudes so that we can use live streams for more opportunities to read more stuff.
That's why we're doing 3 this week. We had one Tuesday today, and then we're going to do an extra long one Saturday. And then next week we'll figure out when we'll do it.
Yep.
But we're pretty close. We're like, what now? Like 40 chapters?
Not quite. 53 chapters left.
53 chapters left.
So we're trying to method output. Lord of the Rings books. The movies are really, really good. The books are better. But for film adaptations, I think Lord of the Rings is probably some of the best fantasy film adaptation I've ever seen.
That's true.
Like, the Lord of the Rings films are so good.
I almost feel like they followed the books too closely because there's, like, you know my issues with it. I thought when I first watched the movies, I really couldn't watch them because I felt like there were a lot of slow moments in the movies. When you read the books, it's not that slow because you're getting this insight into the characters and what they're thinking and everything, so it goes a lot faster. And I think overall...
See, and that's why I thought the movies were so good, because they really did include so much.
Yeah, which is fine, but I think when you get to those points in the movies where it sort of gets stale, it doesn't do that in the books. You really don't have those...
It translates differently into movies. I didn't find it boring in the movie, but I could see why.
I mean, obviously, I'm the odd man out here. Like, look how good those movies did. Like, obviously, I'm wrong. But that's how I felt.
I thought those movies were just so good. What time are we starting on Saturday? We are going to start at 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
And I'll make the live stream like right after this. So
Farmer
it'll show
Maggot,
up
the
for
movie
your
was
own
very
time.
much not like the book. Sorry, I cut you off.
I was just saying I'll make the live stream so that you can go see, and it'll show you what 5 p.m. Eastern time would be in your time zone if you're in a different time zone.
I never watched I did watch the Aragon movie, read the Aragon book. Farmer Maggot. I thought the movies were... I read the books and watched the movies, and I thought the movies were very good adaptations, given... how much you had to cut out of Lord of the Rings to get it to be a film. I thought they did very well.
Yeah.
I just,
And since we were talking about Dune earlier, if you go and watch the movie, Dune kind of does the same thing, where they were just like, we're only going to do half the book in this one movie, because I'm going to put everything in there.
Yeah, the latest Dune movie really tried to include quite a lot of book content, and that's why the Dune movie is only half the story.
So, yeah. So, it was like, what, a 3-hour runtime? 3.5-hour runtime?
It was long, yeah.
They only cut out, like, 2 scenes from the book.
Yeah, they really didn't cut out much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's one of the most faithful adaptations of a book I've seen.
I think close second being Lord of the Rings, even though they did have to cut out a lot of stuff, but I thought they included quite a bit of material. And the movies were gorgeous. It just looked like, yeah.
I mean, I know
movies, that's different, but
I wouldn't mind maybe give it another 5 to 10 years, but I wouldn't mind a new like remake of the Lord of the Rings movies, but include a little bit more. Do it like Dune.
I don't know how I feel about that. What are gonna remake those movies for? They were so good.
They were.
They were so good.
It'd be hard to remake them, but
this fan fiction is really somewhat of a chore for me now. I think it's a bit too redundant on the romances, but have such a hard time to leave before witnessing the final page.
That's kind of where we are too.
Yeah,
the romance is getting a little
stale.
Much. Yeah.
I'm kind of at the point in this story where we're like, well, we've read most of it. We have to finish it, but it feels like we have to finish it. I'm not like, yes, can't wait to read the next chapter at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, let's...
The romance was a good build-up until they got together. And then it's like, all right, now push it to the side and let's continue on the other plot lines.
Meth and output, there are 188 chapters of this fan fiction, and we are about to read chapter 135. So we are kind of almost there. We are on the home stretch of this story.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to get there. No, that is why The Hobbit... Well, the Hobbit movies also were not faithful to the book. They stretched the story out way too long, added way too much material, and it was very clearly a cash grab.
Yeah.
But I did like Benedict Cumberbatch as Smaug. That's what I liked.
That was great. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, we could start incorporating some other live streams in.
We could. But maybe we should...
Maybe we'll do our Thursday live streams. We'll keep doing all the young dudes, and then Saturdays we could do other stuff.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because, yeah, I'm hoping it picks up. I feel like it'll get better near the end.
I'm hoping it gets better in the end.
The redundancy of the romance is...
It's
weighing me down.
Yep. This is getting to be kind of a chore now for us, too. So you're not alone. And we know Maddie G and I are on the same page with Remus's bullshit. We've had enough of Remus's bullshit. So, that being said, let's get through another chapter here. Let's do this, shall we? We got this.
Agreed. Peter Jackson is definitely unbeatable.
Yeah. Yeah. No question. No doubt in my mind. Those movies are... They're an achievement.
You
They
can tell he was passionate about them.
I think they... maybe this is a corny thing to say, but I think those movies are an achievement to humanity. Like, they are so good. They are such a triumph of what you can do with film. They're incredible works of art. They're an astounding feat to have pulled off.
You know what I would change?
Those films are just breathtaking and incredible.
They are. You know what I would change? I would include Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, I would have put Tom Bombadil in there too.
And you know what? Because he is like the Lord of Tolkien, I think it should have been played by Stephen Colbert.
Tom Bombadil played by Stephen Colbert.
I think he could have done great in that part.
Yeah, he would have definitely been passionate about it.
That's what I mean. And he has that kind of wackiness, but mixed with a little bit of dry humor that Bombadil has.
The what? I'm sorry, I was reading what people were saying.
Oh, I say he kind of has that little bit of wackiness, but kind of dry humor that Bombadil has.
But he has to sing the songs. Oh, Bombadil, boom, 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 boom. He has to sing the songs.
Well, yeah.
Goldberry!
He could have
The
done
lovely Goldberry!
Who would you have play Tom Bombadil?
Oh, I don't have anyone in mind,
Oh, okay.
so... Stephen Colbert is fine.
I'm just saying, like, I see their personalities, and I feel like they would be a good match.
All I can think about is that video. Who was on Colbert with it? Was it James Franco who challenged him to name the Valar?
Yeah.
Name just 3 of the Valar. And
He, like,
Stephen
named
Colbert is
everything.
like, you come into my house? Do you want the Valar of the waters? Ulmo? Do you want the Lord of all the Valar, Manwë? Do you want Aule, the Valar of all the Smiths? Blah, 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 blah. You come into my house.
I say it because I guess I didn't watch it, but there was like a video, I guess, on his new show or whatever. There was a scene where he kind of went off on Lord of the Rings again.
Oh, he like went on a tangent
Yeah.
about it? That's awesome. Adam Sandler is Tom Bombadil. I don't know how I feel about
Oh, man. It would be the best thing that Adam Sandler has been in since Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, Method Output is excited because he can see Bailey.
Yes, Biddy.
Frodo of the
Man.
9 Fingers.
Adam Sandler makes me sad because he made such great movies, and then he was
on the Ukraine concert thing.
Oh, really?
Yep. Answer the Call concert for Ukraine. Yeah, he was all about that. Hello, Marcelo.
Hello.
He's had the Prime Minister of New Zealand on his show twice. Very nice.
Oh, nice.
I'm a fan of the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I like her.
Yeah.
All right, next chapter. Let's get in another one. Maybe we have time for one more. I don't know. We'll play this by ear.
Okay.
Let's at least read this one and see where we're at. Are we all ready? Chapter 135, 7th year. The Marauders Inter-House Prank Planning Cooperative. Wednesday, 15th of February, 1978. I can't believe you're holding this thing here, Christopher said agitatedly as Remus unlocked the charms classroom. Best way to avoid detention. Flitwick's always let me use it, Remus replied. Exactly, it's so brazen, Christopher chided as they entered. Brazen is our middle name, James declared excitedly, following them. Your middle name is Fleamont, you prat, Sirius scoffed. And this place is genius. No one will ever suspect anything. I knew your SWAT lessons would come in useful one day, Mooney. A lot of people find Remus's study group very helpful, actually,
Christopher said primly, folding his arms and leaning against the wall. Oh, Chris, he's just teasing, Remus chuckled, setting his book bag down. He glanced at his pocket watch. We're all nice and early, James. Have you got an agenda? A what? James turned round from the blackboard, where he was directing the chalk to draw a gigantic lion with Gryffindor rules, okay, beneath it. Never mind, Remus sighed. So, who else got an invitation? Chris asked over the top of his book, which seemed to have materialised from nowhere. Christopher was the only other person Remus knew who could go from 0 to reading in less than 3 seconds flat. About 20 or 30 people, maybe, Remus said. Anyone who expressed an interest before Christmas who seemed trustworthy. It was an extremely rigorous vetting process, actually, James said, now standing on Flitwick's desk and trying to touch the ceiling with his fingertips. Yeah, we almost didn't let Wormtail in, Sirius barked with laughter from the window, where he was leaning half out of it, smoking. Remus dearly wanted to go over there and wrap his arms round Sirius, steal the cigarette, which was probably one of his anyway, the thief, and kiss his neck. But the others would be arriving soon, and it was a completely mental line of thinking that. Why do you call Peter that? Christopher asked. Just a nickname, they all said in unison. Peter arrived shortly after that, followed in by Mary, Lily, and Yasmin. Next were the 6th and 7th years from Remus's study group, and Dorcas, who was still apparently on friendly terms with Peter. Mary's latest squeeze, a Ravenclaw boy named Jonty Simmons, who looked like he couldn't believe his luck. And finally, much to Remus's distaste, Emmeline Vance sauntered in 2 minutes late, with Roman Rotherhide. The room was pretty crowded after that, and noisy with the buzz of excitement. Most of the group had some idea why they were there, but others were curious, and all of them were fascinated by the Marauders. Why? You go to school with these people. Why are you fascinated? Like, they're in the hallway with you.
Yeah, but they don't... They're in their common room now.
They're in the Charms classroom.
I misheard that. I thought they were in the common room. Never mind.
James and Sirius adored the attention, of course, and immediately took centre stage. Now we all know why we're here, James started, using his Quidditch captain voice. Immediately, Emmeline Vance's arm shot up. Sorry, but I don't. Remus gave an impatient snort, and Christopher, sitting next to him, shot him a strange look. Nor do I. Dorcas raised her hand too, along with 1 or 2 6-years from Remus's study group. Why did you all come, then? Sirius asked, eyebrows raised. A group of girls sitting at the back of the room giggled. Remus made a mental note. He'd tried to avoid inviting too many members of the Sirius Black fan club, but it was pretty much unavoidable when that applied to half the school. We're here to plan an organised protest, Christopher said, blushing a bit, because he wasn't used to speaking in front of lots of people. Against Slytherin. Yeah, another 6-year shouted. I heard you lot were planning your biggest prank yet. I heard one of you knows how to get the monster out of the Chamber of Secrets. I heard you was planning to blow up the dungeons, one Hufflepuff boy squeaked. Whoa, whoa, whoa! James held up his hands. Bit less dramatic than that. Well, if it's about getting the Slytherins back for all the nonsense they've pulled, I'm in, Emmeline said decisively, tossing her luxuriant blonde curls. Remus tutted loudly, and Chris shot him another look. That's exactly what it's about, and exactly why we need all of you to keep quiet about it, James said, getting into his flow now. This is our last year, and we're inviting all of you to help us plan our final prank. Does that make us Marauders? The Hufflepuff boy squeaked again. There was an excited murmur. No, Peter said indignantly, though no one really paid him any attention. I'd like to think of it more as a collaboration, James said thoughtfully. An inter-house cooperative, Sirius added. Everyone seemed pretty pleased with that. At least it sounded impressive and official enough. Right, James clapped his hands together and rubbed them, smiling round at everyone. Now that's out of the way, who's got some ideas? 20 hands shot up. Lily spoke up. I think before we get into that, it might be good to have some ground rules. Like what? Sirius folded his arms grumpily. Like not actually hurting anyone. This is just fun, okay? Not revenge for everything Slytherin's ever done. She was using her head girl voice now, and a few people lowered their hands. Fair enough, James said, holding up his hands amicably, coming between Sirius and Lily. No physical harm intended, and as I said before, no talking about it outside of this room, on pain of death. Joking, Evans. He ducked as she went to slap the back of his head. After these initial teething problems, everyone seemed to enter into the spirit of the thing. Lots of people had ideas, from the extreme, Lily vetoed summoning a banshee to haunt the dungeons, to the subtle, Emmeline knew of a spell which would transfigure everyone's right shoe into a left shoe. She said she'd done it to her sister over the summer, and it had taken her 3 days to realise that it had been bothering her. Eventually, time ran short, so James set everyone homework, requiring them to come back next week with an idea. Then we can decide on the best one, Sirius declared. Who decides? Mary narrowed her eyes. Me, James, Pete and Mooney, obviously. Sirius raised his chin. Can't we vote? One of the 6 years asked. Yeah, that seems fairer, Mary nodded. If we're all putting ourselves at risk of expulsion for you. Expulsion? Christopher bit his lip. Surely not. Surely we won't go that far. Will we get in trouble, though? The Hufflepuff boy raised his hand again. Everyone looked at him. Not much, Sirius shrugged. Bit of detention never hurt anyone. No, sorry, I don't mean detention. The boy shook his head nervously. I mean with, the Slytherins. They won't tell the Death Eaters to get us, will they? Sirius looked about to laugh when he realised that the atmosphere in the room had changed. A few people looked very awkward. Some of them were whispering amongst themselves. Remus could even smell a whiff of real fear creeping into the room. Everybody seemed to have tensed up a bit. Of course, Sirius and James did not worry about that sort of thing. This was all a part of the crusade of chaos they'd been on since they were 11. Even Remus had been pretty flippant about the magnitude of the prank, but he now saw that it meant a lot more to those gathered in the room. James, Sirius and Peter were the only purebloods in attendance, unless you counted Christopher, who had his own axe to grind with the Slytherins. James stood up again, pushing off Flitwick's desk and drawing himself up to full height. Absolutely not. No one in this room is getting hurt because of this prank. A few people relaxed. After all, James Potter, heir to the Sleek Easy fortune, head boy, Quidditch captain, and leading mischief maker, was somebody that most people trusted. Remus believed him wholeheartedly. Even if the issue had not been raised, it would have been a point of honour for James to protect anyone smaller than him. Lily was beaming at him too, and Sirius looked very pleased, as if that had settled everything. Right, Lily clapped her hands together now, taking the floor again. See you all next week, I suppose. I think we'd all better leave in smaller groups. Don't want to draw attention to ourselves. With that, the room slowly returned to normal, groups of students now chattering excitedly about ideas they had, or curses they'd like to try out. Lily assumed her head girl voice and started directing people out of the room in groups of 3 or 4 at short intervals. The Marauders turned inward to confer. Bloody hell, James muttered so that he wouldn't be overheard. That was intense. What did you expect? Mary tutted, hoisting herself up onto the desk and swinging her legs. This isn't a game to everyone. Some people are out for revenge. Then that's what we'll give them, Sirius said fiercely. He had that brightness in his eyes that told Remus he would be utterly unbearable for the next few hours. A plan was afoot, and nothing could bring Sirius down from that kind of excitement. Calm down, Black, Mary teased. You're school kids, not generals. For now, he replied darkly. Okay, you lot. Lily turned back into the room. It was only the 7 of them left. We'll go back in 2 groups, because no one is going to believe you 4 weren't up to something. Mary, James, Lily and Peter left first, with instructions for Remus, Sirius and Christopher to give them a 10-minute head start. Remus was a bit reluctant about this, but there was no way to bring it up. He couldn't help remembering what had happened the last time he and Christopher were alone in that classroom with Sirius. Though, of course, Christopher hadn't known Sirius was there at the time, and nor would Remus ever tell him. They tidied up the desks, cleared the chalkboard of James's lion, then stood about awkwardly for a minute.
"Let's play Truth or Dare,"
Sirius grinned. "Why?" Remus sighed, leaning on the desk. "Here we go."
"Pass the time.
Or we could just have a normal conversation.
Christopher wants to, don't you, Christopher?"
Great, you can go first.
Truth or Dare, what do you fancy?"
Chris's eyes flickered between Remus and Sirius nervously. "I don't, truth?"
"Excellent. Start off easy, as it's your first time playing."
Sirius nodded encouragingly.
"Let's see. All right. Why did you want to get involved with the prank?"
"What?"
"You know, how come you came today?"
"Chris has been involved since the beginning, Padfoot. You know that," Remus tutted.
Right. So what made you get involved in the first place, then?"
"If you have to know," Christopher said rather icily, "it was your brother." Sirius, to his credit, did not flinch.
"Fair enough. He's a right little prick."
He nodded. He licked his lips and glanced at Remus, then back at Chris.
"Sure there was no other reason?"
"No."
"I'll go next,"
Remus said quickly.
"Chris, you can ask me to do a dare."
He never picked truth. It was far too dangerous. Chris bit his lip, still a bit thrown by this whole thing. "Oh, I don't know. I'm crap at this sort of thing."
"I've got a good one,"
Sirius said at once. He winked at Remus, then leaned over and whispered in Chris's ear. Christopher's eyes widened and he laughed, covering his mouth. "Okay, Remus." Chris was still blushing, but he was having fun now. "Okay, you have to write something rude on the blackboard and leave it there."
"I gave you specifics,"
Sirius complained. "I'm not saying that out loud." Christopher laughed, turning even redder. Remus could easily guess the tone of Sirius's suggestion. He raised an eyebrow wryly, as if under duress.
"Okay, fine, I'll do it."
He went up to the blackboard and picked up some chalk. He considered it for a moment. "How rude?" he asked the other two casually. "Very," Christopher said, smirking shyly.
"Well, it's the rules of the game, I suppose."
Remus began to draw, enjoying the sniggering over his shoulder as he deftly traced out the first rude thing that popped into his head. He stepped back, an artist admiring his work. The other boys stood beside him, grinning madly. "Well?" Sirius slapped him on the back.
"Mooney, my old pal. That is the biggest knob I've ever seen."
"Well, that's a relief," Remus smirked, forgetting Christopher was there. He didn't seem to notice, or else just assumed that it was Marauder humour, which it sort of was. "Glorious," the younger boy nodded, still very pink about the cheeks.
"Come on, then."
Remus set down the chalk.
"That's enough of a gap. We can go now. Common room?" "Oh, I haven't had my turn yet."
Sirius folded his arms.
"What's the point?"
Remus shook his head.
"You're always going to choose dare, and there's nothing I could think of that you would even think twice about doing." "Are you saying I'm the bravest?"
"Stupidest, maybe," Remus teased, elbowing him in the ribs. "Come on, let's go." They left the classroom and set off through the quiet hallways back to Gryffindor Tower. It was fairly late in the evening now, and curfew was only a couple of hours off, so they were alone most of the way, other than the portraits, who were enjoying the peace and quiet. "Did you finish Maurice, Remus?" Chris asked. Always back to books.
"Nearly," Remus replied. "Just a chapter or two to go. Do you promise me it's an happy ending?"
"Definitely," Christopher nodded. "You'll love it. I was thinking, if you're free on Saturday, we could have a chat about it in the Three Broomsticks. I'd really like to know what you think."
"Yeah, maybe."
Remus was torn between his desire not to disappoint Christopher, which he always seemed to be doing, and his keen awareness of Sirius's very mercurial mood.
"Don't see why not." "Is that the Muggle book you've been reading?"
Sirius asked.
"Is it good, then?"
"Yeah, quite good," Remus nodded cautiously.
"Great, maybe I'll get it read then. I can get it done by Saturday. I read faster than you." "You do not,"
Remus scowled, scandalized. Well, I have more time to read anyway. Only because you hardly go to half your lessons, Remus shot back. I doubt it's your sort of thing, Sirius, Christopher spoke up. They both looked at him. He shrugged. Well, it's not. Tell him what it's about, Remus. But it was too late. Sirius was already rummaging in the book bag at Remus's hip as they walked, and at once withdrew the text. Remus fought the urge to snatch it back, only because he'd underlined some parts of it, just because he'd liked them so much, and he was embarrassed about it now. I think you're beautiful. The only beautiful person I've ever seen. I love your voice and everything to do with you, down to your clothes and the room you're sitting in. I adore you. Fortunately, Sirius didn't flip through the pages, only looked at the back cover, frowning slightly. Isn't this one of my uncle's? He asked. Yeah, you said I could borrow it. Remus rubbed the back of his neck. Is it dirty? No. Oh well, I'll read it anyway. Sirius poked out his tongue. That can be my dare. Very brave. Remus grabbed the book back and shoved it in his bag. But it's about... Christopher frowned. They were almost at the portrait hole now, and Sirius stopped, making all three of them stop too. Sirius looked at Remus, raising an eyebrow. He nodded to Chris. He makes a lot of assumptions, this one. Remus was surprised to find that his own cheeks were heating up too. He shrugged. He doesn't know you very well. Oi, Christopher! Sirius shot him a very wicked look. Dare me to snog Mooney? What? Christopher looked stricken, as if he knew there was a joke somewhere, but he couldn't figure out the punchline. Sirius wasted no time. He took Remus's head roughly and pulled him in for a kiss. Remus gave in. It was a bit mean, but he could hardly refuse. If it was a test of loyalty or simply something Sirius thought would be funny, he had to go along with it. Oh, for Merlin's sake! A voice came from further up the corridor, causing Sirius and Remus to spring apart. I'm away for a week and the castle turns into an orgy. All three boys spun round to see Marlene standing there in her travelling cloak, duffel bag at her side. She gave them a knowing smirk. What a load of queers.
Oh, that was the end?
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, okay. Oh, Marlene's back.
Yay!
So I guess this is the new plot now. There's going to be tension between Chris and Sirius, even though nothing happened.
I don't know. This was what I'm not even excited about the prank, to be honest with you.
I am. It's the first non-Remus Sirius love issue.
I know, but then we have to have little interruptions of all Remus wanted to do was kiss Sirius, but he couldn't because people were in the room.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, can we just not have it for, 5 minutes with the romance?
Right?
Like, can we just not? We know he's your boyfriend. We got there already. Does he have to keep shoving it in my face?
Right, now you gotta do Marauder things.
I'm not a dog. I don't need my nose rubbed in it every 5 minutes.
Hey. Think about what you're saying. Some of us are dogs in the room right now.
I love you. You're very handsome and very good boy. That's why we don't have to rub your nose in things. Right? The truth or dare thing, that was just kind of pointless for me. I feel like the author wanted to do it and needed a reason for Christopher to find out about Remus and Sirius, so that was it.
I thought Chris already knew. I thought he confronted Sirius.
No.
Or not Sirius, Remus about it, or hinted at it.
I mean, he knew Remus was gay, but that was it.
No, I thought I thought they had a conversation where Remus thought that he was alluding to... Oh, hold on. Go this way. So you don't knock over stuff.
It'd be better if the author wrote about all of them, not just concentrated on Remus and his adoration for Sirius.
That's what I mean. Like, I understood the whole thing where it kind of focused in on Remus and Sirius, and I was like, okay, that's fine, because you know you got to build up this love.
Right, there is a
interest.
romance, but your secondary characters should be secondary characters.
Like I've said it many times going through. For a Marauders story, there's not enough pranks for me. I want some more
No.
pranks.
Caleb feels the pain too.
We had some great ones in the beginning.
Story started out so strong.
Mm-hmm.
Story was like super strong for quite a while. And I feel now it's like just dragging. Not enough map use, right?
And yeah. See, I think the author wasn't quite sure what to do in between when Lupin and Sirius get together. I think he assumes. And when James and Lily die. So I think that's why this is
happening like it's happening.
Yeah. So my theory is that we're going to get to where everything happens, or maybe even after they get out of school, and he becomes part of, you know, Dumbledore's
the Order of
army.
the Phoenix.
Order of the Phoenix.
Oh my god, we're going to get more werewolf subplot, probably.
Probably. But I'm fine with that if you focus on it and without the self-loathing of Remus.
Not enough details about him as a werewolf, what they do in the shack. I want details of the shenanigans they get into when they're all transformed.
Yes, that too.
That would have been fun. Or even if you don't see it in the moment, like even if you're not like following Remus in the moment when it happens, maybe at least like after a transformation they all sit around and they talk about what happened. And like, Mooney, you did this thing, and then Peter did this thing, and we just... Do you remember that one time when we scared the shit out of the centaurs, literally?
Right?
So much poop. Like, just something.
Like, I mean, everyone's had... Mostly everyone probably has had, like, a blackout night.
Right.
At one time or another.
Right, yeah.
What do you do afterward? You sit down with your friends and you try to piece together the night.
Right, what happens?
Like,
yeah.
Oh my god, did you really do that? Like, that would have been awesome.
Maddie G says more James Lily and more Peter specifically would have been awesome.
Yeah. Well, Peter.
Yeah, but you want more Peter to make the betrayal feel a lot more devastating.
Yeah, at this point, like, I started out with Peter, I hate you. Now I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
I don't care about his betrayal. I don't care.
Him and Desdemona broke up. Oh. Anyways.
Yeah. I'm a little hesitant to read this next chapter.
Why? What is it?
Maddie, girl, brace yourself, because the summary says that Remus has some really negative internal thoughts in this chapter. Maybe hard to read if you're having a bad day.
Okay, so I guess the question is, do we end on that and then hope for a better chapter to begin with in the next stream? Or do we end on a relatively okay note with this last chapter? Wasn't anything astounding, but it also wasn't rage-inducing for you.
I think we should actually just get this one out of the way.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to want to go into it on Saturday knowing I have to read this. So I think we should just get it out of the way, and then hopefully the next chapter on Saturday is better.
Okay. I just want something to talk about other than...
I don't like this right now.
Well, no, it's just, like, the whole thing about us reading these chapters and having a discussion after is because it's fun to sit down and talk about what you just read.
Right.
But when you're giving us the same stuff over and over, it's hard to talk about it.
I know.
I feel like we're now being redundant in how we talk about it.
Because we're literally saying the same thing over and over. Yeah. This story is just in this funk right now, and it's just... all right, let's just read this.
Let's just do it.
Let's just get it out. Let's bite the bullets. Get it out of the way, people. Chapter 136, 7th year. Mind games. Okay. Oh, you know what? It's going to be all about... no, I'm not. Okay. Just okay.
It's like a Band-Aid.
Yep.
Just rip it off. Go.
Everyone was thrilled to see Marlene, of course. Sirius ushered her through the fat lady's portrait as fast as he could and practically trumpeted her arrival to the whole common room as though he'd conjured her from thin air. Lily and James rushed over, hugging her and taking her bag and cloak and leading her to the couch by the fireplace, where Mary hugged her so fiercely Marlene almost squeaked. "We've missed you!" Mary exclaimed, finally letting her friend go. "I can see that," Mary gasped, pink-cheeked. "Have you all been that bored without me?" Remus hung back a little. He and Marlene didn't hug much anyway, so he didn't think it would be noticed. He watched her warily and chose to sit in the armchair furthest away from her, trying not to draw attention to himself. Christopher had slipped away too, at some point, maybe up to his dorm room. In the back of his mind, Remus hoped Chris wasn't angry with him, but he filed that away for another time. He had too much to worry about with Marlene's return. "How's Danny?" Mary was asking now, lowering her voice. "He's recovering," Marlene nodded, her eyes serious. "He's at home now. Mum's driving him crazy as usual. He won't be going back to the cannons." She swallowed and looked down at her hands. "It's a bloody disgrace." James banged his fist on the arm of the couch. "If I was their manager, I'd..." "He's too badly injured anyway." Marlene shook her head, wiping away her quickly wiping under her eyes. "He'd have been off for the rest of the season either way. It'll be months before he's back on a broom. So, just as well." "Still bollocks," James muttered. "Yeah, well..." Marlene stood up stonily. "Can't hardly blame 'em. I know I would have, anyway. Not worth thinking about." Remus felt sick with tension. Everyone else sitting in the group knew what he was. Everyone except Marlene. The guilt he'd been successfully avoiding for a week came crashing back over him like a cold shower. It had been his responsibility to warn everyone of the attack. He'd told Dumbledore, but it hadn't been enough. He'd failed. And now the evidence of his failure was sitting right in front of him, her face thin and her eyes dark with worry. Marlene cleared her throat and flashed them all with a brave smile. "I'm going to talk to Madame Pomfrey as soon as I can, see if she recommends anything. The healers at St. Mungo's were useless, more concerned with keeping him quarantined than actually helping him. Hardly anyone could answer the questions I had about transformations or aftercare or pain relief. It was like they'd rather I just stopped talking about him, like they wanted to pretend he wasn't there." Her voice was getting higher and thinner as she said this, tears threatening to choke her. She cleared her throat again. "I mean, I know what he is, don't get me wrong. I know what he's going to become. But he's my brother, for fuck's sake." "Of course he is," Mary said, squeezing Marlene's hand. She gave Remus a look and he nodded and he looked at her feet. No way, absolutely not. No one else was speaking, but they all had the same look on their faces. Are they thinking about me? Remus wondered queasily. Do they blame me? Or are they wondering what I'm capable of? Anyway, Marlene shook her head again. What's been going on here? Is that your cat, Lily? Valentine's Day present, Lily smiled, stroking the purring bundle in her lap. His name's Hieronymus. Catchy, Marlene sniffed, smiling. Nice one, Potter, you big softy. You're still on my team, right? James asked, leaning forward. My star beater? Obviously, she rolled her eyes. I'm assuming the training times haven't changed. First thing tomorrow morning, James grinned. And we're planning this huge... Peter started eagerly, but was cut off. Oi, McKinnon! They all turned round to see Yasmin standing behind the couch, hands on her hips and grinning widely. She obviously had been getting ready for bed. Her hair was piled up messily on her head, and she was wearing an oversized Hollyhead Harpies shirt and a baggy pair of men's Winsett pyjama bottoms. All right, Patel, Marlene answered. Remus couldn't see her face, but she knew she was smiling. She twisted round on the couch and got up on her knees, and the girls hugged tightly.
You could do that, Remus realised, if you were girls. No one thought it was weird. He wondered if Sirius was thinking the same thing. He hoped not. That pretty much put an end to any more werewolf talk, which was a relief. Remus just hoped he could avoid it later when it was just him and Sirius. He was sure to want to talk... He was sure to want to know how Remus felt and what his thoughts were. And while, yes, okay, Remus did understand that communication was important and blah, 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 did that mean they had to discuss every painful thing in minute detail? For God's sake, he was already getting agitated about it, and it hadn't even happened. He cracked his neck, then his shoulders, willing himself to loosen up. He was still a bit wound up from that kiss out in the corridor, he realised. He wasn't sure whether or not Sirius had meant it that way, or if it was just a show for Christopher, but it had stirred something in Remus, and now it felt like unfinished business. He shifted a bit in his seat and tried to ignore that too. Mary had tactfully moved to the other end of the couch and was now casually filing her nails and chatting to Lily, who was teasing Hieronymus with a quill. Yaz climbed over the back of the sofa to take her place, and she and Marlene had their heads together, speaking very quickly and quietly. Remus caught the muggy scent of the muffliato spell, which was odder from the outside than the inside, as if their very words were blurred out somehow. They were sitting so close to each other that their thighs touched, Yaz's arm slung round the back of the couch just behind Marlene's head, in a way that would have raised eyebrows, even if only one of them was a boy. James and Sirius were in a deep conversation about the upcoming Quidditch match against Ravenclaw. Peter was interjecting every now and then with his own tactical insights. Remus pulled his book out and tried to read. It was no good. He couldn't concentrate with so many people chatting. The last postcard from Grant was tucked into the dust jacket of Maurice, and he read it again. This time the photo on the front was of 3 bikini-clad girls frolicking in the sea. Even Sirius had found that one funny. There wasn't much on the back. Grant was a man of few words when it came to written correspondence. Working hard, having fun. Hope you're well. Love. That word again. Obviously Grant could say it, or write it. He couldn't spell Remus's surname the same way twice, but love was no big deal. Only half an hour ago, Remus had been almost completely free from worry, cocooned by his friends and Sirius and the idiotic notion that everything would be okay if they could just come up with a really good prank. But the shade had fallen now, and no matter where he looked, all Remus could see was trouble and his own failings. Frustrated, he slammed his book closed on the postcard a little too hard. Everyone looked up. "All right there, Moony?" Lily asked gently. "Fine, sorry," Remus nodded. He reached into his pockets for a cigarette, pulling out his matchbox quickly. "Not in the common room, please." Lily switched to head girl mode, quick as a flash. Right, sorry." He clambered clumsily to his feet, fag pursed between his lips. "I'll go upstairs." "We're going to bed too," Marlene said, then blushed and stammered quickly. "I mean upstairs. To sleep. You know, if we've got an early practice." Yaz was barely able to keep a straight face as she waved goodbye to them all before hurrying up the stairs after a girlfriend. Mary and Remus shared a knowing look, but Lily and James still seemed blissfully ignorant. "Night," Remus nodded to everyone, heaving his bag onto his shoulder and heading up the opposite flight of stairs to the boys' dormitories. It was a mistake. Alone, he had nothing to distract him from his own judgments, and they were harsh. Quite right, too, in Remus's opinion. If the McKinnon family could not forget the repercussions of his failure to act, then why should he have any respite? And those were just the people he knew he'd let down. There were families up and down the country now facing a full moon for the first time. It was a good thing his father was dead and his mother had washed her hands of him. At least he couldn't cause them any more pain. He sat on the window ledge, letting the cold air wash over him, smoking and thinking and scolding himself until he thought he may as well just fling himself out of it. But that was just a passing fancy. Remus was too much of a coward to do what ought to be done. This much he knew. Still, he felt a strong urge to do something. Something drastic, something violent. The wolf inside would have liked a good long run, but it would be past curfew soon. There was a bit of dope in his sock drawer, but that would only make him more gloomy. Someone was hiding a bottle of fire whiskey. He could smell it, but that was probably in preparation for his own upcoming birthday, and he couldn't spoil that for his friends. Maybe put on a record and flail around a little bit, but he'd never been much for dancing, and his hip was bothering him. Sirius's footfall on the stairs disrupted his thoughts. Remus licked his lips, remembering that kiss from earlier. Ah, there was always that, the ultimate distraction. Decision made, he stubbed out the cigarette and got up, striding purposefully across the room. He reached the door just as Sirius pushed it open. Best not to even give him a chance.
"Watcher, Mooney, just came to see if you..."
He shut him up with a fierce kiss, crushing their lips together, pulling him at the hips so they were pressed hard against each other.
Okay.
Sirius gasped when he finally wrenched himself free. He kicked the door shut behind himself as Remus dragged him to the bed. It was good. It was really, really good. Remus's frustrated urgency was met with answering eagerness from Sirius, and they tore against each other, out of sync in the best possible way. Losing yourself in drink or drugs was nothing compared to losing yourself in Sirius Black. They'd been at this long enough to know the edges of each other's limits and just how far they could push them.
"Fuck,"
Sirius groaned when it was all over and the windows were steamy and the waxing moon had risen outside. Remus reached for his fags once more, still buzzing, his hot skim humming.
"Fuck,"
Sirius said again, on his back, staring up. Beautiful mess.
"What brought that on?"
"Just you," Remus replied, exhaling smoke.
"Just wanted it." "Not complaining?"
Remus settled back, smoking quietly. This was good. This was better, anyway, than anything else he could be doing. He was still restless, though. A bit more tired, but fidgety and unsettled. He could go again. He could go all night if it would shut his brain up. That made him glance at the door. They hadn't shut the curtains, and by some miracle had gotten away with it.
"Where are the others?"
Sirius's eyes had drifted shut, but he stirred awake valiantly.
Pete's 3 rounds into a chess game with a second year, who's obviously some sort of evil mastermind. Mary went to bed, and Prongs and the missus have gone to the prefect's bathrooms. They thought they were being subtle."
He chuckled lightly under his breath. "I'm going to brush my teeth," Remus said, getting up. In the bathroom, everything came flooding back, and he couldn't meet his own eyes in the mirror. When he came back out, Sirius had woken up a bit and was sitting up in bed. He smiled at Remus.
"I just wanted to check you were okay about Marlene and everything."
"Fine," Remus nodded casually, climbing back in, drawing the curtains closed as he did so.
"It's good to have her back. I hope you're not worried about..." "Do we have to talk about that?"
Remus crawled toward him, straddling his lap. He began kissing Sirius's neck, rocking into him slowly.
"Blimey again?"
Sirius sounded surprised, but not unhappy about it. Remus replied, taking his wrists and holding them tight. Such lovely, lovely wrists.
"Oh, okay, but if you're worried..."
"Shut up, Black," Remus growled, pulling back and meeting his eye. Sirius did, biting his lip. Remus smiled.
"Much better. No talking tonight."
It was a cruel trick, really, exploiting Sirius's peculiar proclivity for following direct instructions. But it worked, and Remus got his peace, at least that night. The next day was tougher, but lessons in library time became a comfortable barrier between them once again, not to mention the general rabble of friends who accompanied them pretty much everywhere. A wiser, braver man might have used the time to look into himself, to address the feelings of guilt and shame and self-disgust, and maybe even make some changes for the better. Remus preferred pretending everything was fine. And for a little while anyway, it seemed that Sirius was going to let him. They were still together almost all of the time, and it wasn't as if they were arguing. If Sirius wondered why Remus's libido rocketed any time they started to have a private conversation, he didn't say anything. In the end, he took a different tact. The weekend before the upcoming full moon, they were walking back up to the school from Hogsmeade, and Remus had had to slow down because of his stupid hip yet again. Sirius and James were chatting ahead, but Christopher hung back to keep Remus company. They'd been to the Three Broomsticks, but the whole big group of them, and Christopher was always too shy to talk much in that sort of situation, so he was taking his chances now. "I'm glad you liked the book," he said, hands in his pockets as he went. "Wasn't it a nice ending?" "Yeah, great," Remus puffed, rubbing his hip to try and get it going. "Maurice, the character, reminded me a bit of you." "What? Nah." He was starting to sweat with exertion, despite the cold February air. He wiped his forehead, squinting uphill. Sirius and James were striding ahead, laughing about something together. Christopher followed his eye line. He pressed his lips together. "Are you and he—" He couldn't find the words, and Remus knew what that was like, so he just gave a straight answer. No need to be coy. "Yeah, we are." "Oh." Christopher sounded deflated, as if he'd still thought it was all a joke at his expense. "What's that like, then?" "I dunno. Good. Great. I wish—" He sounded so sad, and he never finished the sentence. After a long time and more struggling to keep up, Remus touched his shoulder gently. "There's someone for everyone, Chris." "Maybe." "Oi, Mooney, come on!" Sirius was yelling. They were almost at school now. Sirius had stopped under the stone arch gateway to wait. "See you later, okay, Remus?" Christopher muttered, hurrying off at a funny little jog. Remus ploughed on, finally reaching the school gate. His hip was screaming at him now, the joints burning, pain shooting up and down his leg. He nodded at Sirius by way of greeting, too out of breath to speak. He leaned against the stone with one arm, hoping Sirius wouldn't mind waiting a bit longer while he pulled himself together. "Sorry," he panted finally. "Hate that fucking hill." "You all right?" Sirius asked, giving him a funny look. "Sorry, didn't mean to leave you behind." "Fine," Remus replied. "You know me, just a bit wonky." He straightened up, winced, and rubbed his side again. "Is it your hip?" Sirius had his hands on his hips now, and was giving him an up-and-down sort of look that was rather like Madame Pomfrey after a bad full moon. "Yeah," Remus shrugged. "It's always been a bit funny." "When you say a bit funny, do you mean that you're in pain?" "It's just sore," Remus said, indignant. "So pain, then?" Sirius raised an eyebrow. Remus hated that superior look. "How long has it been hurting?" "Oh, I don't know." Remus threw his hands up, exasperated. What was the point of this? "Since I was 13. "Are you joking?" "Just on and off." "What does Madame Pomfrey say?" "Oh, for God's sake, I don't whinge to her about this sort of crap." Remus was aware that his voice was getting louder. A few third years walking past turned and looked at him before running away giggling. "You're being ridiculous." Sirius folded his arms and tossed his hair. "She's a nurse. She's supposed to make you feel better. What would you do if I told you I'd been in pain for 5 years? "It's not the same." "What are you on about?" "You're not a fucking werewolf." He stopped himself just in time. They both looked round at themselves furtively, checking no one was listening in. Remus scolded himself. It had been a very long time since he'd let anyone get the better of his temperature. Sirius leaned forward, glaring at him. "You don't have to suffer, for fuck's sake," he muttered. That hurt. He didn't know why, but it struck Remus so sharply it knocked the breath out of him, and his eyes pricked. He straightened up, careful to remain expressionless this time. He jutted his chin out at Sirius, meeting his glare. "I'm not talking about this anymore. Come on, we'll miss dinner," and began to stride ahead, biting back against the stabbing in his side.
"Oh, no worries. Have a good meeting, Melanie." So there it is. Remus felt bad for himself. He had a rough time with Sirius, but it got better by the end. it's just been every chapter, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
What's the next chapter called?
Maddie G, brace for this. The next chapter is called Remus the Martyr.
My God. I feel like the author was going through a very rough patch when they wrote these chapters.
At this point, I'm sitting here going, Sirius, why are you with this person? You can do so much better. Remus is right. He can do so much better.
Oh, man.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I've run out of stuff to say about
I
that.
know. I literally, Kayla's like, why again? I don't know. Why are we just on this train of awfulness right now?
End the school year.
Right.
My God, 7th year is dragged on for like 50 chapters.
I know. 7th year is taking forever. Deathly Hallows did not feel this long. Oh, wait, because that was a good story.
Alright, we don't need to just, it doesn't have to be a circle jerk of hatred on the story.
I'm sorry.
Let's just move on.
I'm sorry. I won't hate. Where's the light at the end of this tunnel? Though, if these readings are going to be this frustrating, you're going to need to adjust the limiter because you're hitting the red.
That's what I mean. That's what I was saying. Maybe at least until all the young dudes gets out of this funk, maybe we'll do like a couple chapters of all the young dudes and like a couple chapters of something else. Like maybe we can dive into some stories in the Silmarillion.
That actually wouldn't be a bad idea.
Kind of whet our appetite and get ready for
The Hobbit.
Or Lord of the Rings, whichever we end up reading first.
Switching gears, your kitten is such a good listener. Yes, he is.
He really is.
Jackson loves listening to stories.
And also, hi Ren, no worries. You've if you're just joining us and you've missed a lot of this, you're probably wondering why she is so frustrated.
Yeah.
The young dudes has hit a funk, and
we're not.
I guess you're probably gonna go back and listen, so I won't go too much into it. But it's hit a funk, and it's a bit frustrating.
It is a bit frustrating because, unlike my Immortal, I was invested in this story deeply, and I am losing my investment because of all this that's going on right now.
But
Sirius is the most. Maddie is like, we've been tricked.
They lured us in with a good story, and now we're too deep to go back.
We've dedicated too much. Sirius, by all accounts, is considered the most headstrong marauder, the most impulsive, yada yada yada, and he's literally like the most emotionally mature character now. What has happened?
Right. I guess he matured and then he stagnated
in prison. Like,
so he fell behind.
all the chapters should have been named Remus the Martyr.
And also, I think I missed it. Hello, Nero. Welcome.
Nerovile?
Yeah.
Oh, hello. Dan says they understand why their friend said good luck when she knew we were reading this fanfiction.
I guess so.
I'm wanting to understand why this is... I used to understand why this was so well beloved, but now I'm going like, what?
That's why I'm still optimistic that this is just a funk and it's gonna come out and end well. think the author might have just been going through a hard time now and was projecting some of those hard times into the writing. It's like, keeping my head up on this one. But yeah, I think until it gets out of that, we should definitely consider doing something like that.
We still have... Hang on. Shit.
What are they all just...
No.
Remus the Martyr. Sad Remus. Remus weeps. Tragedy of the Werewolf.
We still have 14 more chapters of 7th year left to go.
Really invested in that.
I guess I have to keep listening to see what the calamity is about. Blue Moon. There isn't a chapter called Blue Moon, but there is a chapter called Blood Moon. I mean, we could just not discuss and read the next chapter.
I don't know. I think I'm kind of... I'm good on all the young dudes tonight.
I wonder if you should just skip reading a chapter here and there. I doubt it would even affect the flow, considering how snail-paced the characters have been progressing.
That's why I feel like maybe you should read ahead and just like pick and choose chapters. Like,
can we just skip to the end?
This story has more filler than a season of Dragon Ball Z.
It's right. Like, oh my god. This has the same number of chapters that Harry Potter does. None of the chapters in Harry Potter are filler chapters. There's a reason for every single thing. Like, speaking of positive changes, when might you continue Fantastic Beasts? Why would that be better? Why would that be better? That is a good point. We do have to watch the second one at some point. I'm not sure, Dan. We'll definitely watch it at some point. I don't know.
Maybe we'll do that.
Instead of reading more than the young. I mean, we could do that on Saturday instead. We just have to stream on the Discord or something.
I think the idea of doing the Silmarillion, though.
Like reading it?
Yeah. Or even just picking out some stories that you like. You know, we don't have to read it word for word, I guess, but... Because I'm sure they're just broken into, like, little stories.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's part.
The cat is sleepy. The cat is sleepy. He's a happy man right now. Yeah, I mean, I'd say I could read another chapter just to get it out of the way, but, I'm just gonna, since we're talking about skimming ahead...
Just see what the next few chapters are called?
Well, I'm just gonna see what the gist is of this.
Oh, just this chapter?
Yeah.
Sirius, Remus, I love you, but I'm not good for you. Yes, you are, you idiot. You're right, I am. I love you. But could you ever love me? Enter next chapter. Repeat.
I mean, Gilderoy Lockhart's in this chapter.
Gilderoy? Why is Gilderoy Lockhart in this chapter?
He is. Maddie G says that she doesn't like that Remus is calculating. He's using sex to shut Sirius up every time he doesn't like the subject. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's not... Yeah, I'm not feeling that either. That's not healthy. It's not nice to Sirius either.
Well, no, but do you see what Remus is doing? None of this is healthy. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, but it's very manipulative. Yeah.
I guess it's up to you. If you want to do another one, we can.
Well,
I've kind of run out of things to say about these chapters because they've been the same thing
over and over?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm down to read one more. What do you guys think?
This is the equivalent of Dragon Ball Z episode where Goku tells everyone that he has to power up, and then it's 5 episodes that supposedly span 5 minutes in the show of Goku just screaming. But in this case, it's Remus just hating on himself.
Yeah. Ren's like, let's go. Let's just do it. Maddie's like, let's go. Let's all right. Ren wants one because he just got here.
All right,
everybody. 9 o'clock is like kind of a good time to stop anyway.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's get it out of the way, guys, and then we're that much closer to the story getting better, potentially, or the story being over. Whatever happens first.
That's true. Taking bets now.
Yes.
Make a poll.
It might be good if there's Lockhart. Kayla's optimistic. If Lockhart's in it,
true.
okay.
Unless they write Lockhart poorly.
Well, we're gonna find out, aren't we? If they write Lockhart poorly. Well, anyway. Chapter 137. 7th year. Remus the Martyr. Okay, I'm just saying it real quick before we read this. All of this is justification for Snape hating him. Snape knew that he was... Snape knew. This is how he was. There it is.
I'm not even going to comment.
All right, here we go. I was born with a plastic spoon in my mouth. The north side of town faced east, and the east was facing south. And now you dare to look me in the eye. Those crocodile tears are what you cry. It's a genuine problem, you won't try to work it all out, you'll just pass it by. Pass it by. Substitute me for him. Substitute my Coke for gin. Substitute you for my mum. At least I'll get my washing done.
Man, I feel like at some point I'm gonna have to go through and find these songs and then like cross-reference to
what the song actually sounds like.
To how you sing it. Just see how absolutely off you are on some of these.
They're not even close on any of them, I'm sure.
I feel like some of them you got. Because there was like a Beatles song in there.
Yeah, there was.
And there were a couple other ones. Oh, that's right. You did share the playlist.
Yeah,
so
you did.
I'll just go through it.
You'll have to find it. Okay, here we go. Brace yourselves, everyone. The stalemate between Remus and Sirius lasted for the rest of the weekend. Sunday was Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw's Quidditch game, so they got away with not speaking much. They both sat together in the stands, cheering when it was appropriate and booing any time the Ravenclaws scored. And that's another 10 points to Gryffindor, the commentator called out through the megaphone.
An overwhelming 60 points now scored by team captain James Potter. No surprises there. Fans are starting to wonder what will become of the mighty Lions next year when they don't have their golden boy to depend on. Ooh, mind that bludger, Sims. Nicely done. Though I must say, I'd have veered left, but I suppose not everybody is chosen for their dexterity. Sometimes it's just about giving everyone a chance, regardless of ability.
Who let Lockhart do the commentary? Sirius grumbled. Stupid prat doesn't even know anything about Quidditch.
He told me he was lined up to play for Puddlemore, Peter said, and the only reason he never played for Ravenclaw was that his coach...
Well, this Bailey barking gives me a perfect opportunity to say thank you, Ren.
Oh yes, wow! Thank you for the super chat, Ren. Much appreciated.
Go ahead, I'll say.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not anxious. And the only reason he never played for Ravenclaw was that his coach said he shouldn't squander his gift in school games.
You're so gullible, Pete, Remus nudged him. I know more about Quidditch than that twat. Yeah, and Mooney knows knows about as much about Quidditch as you know about judging character,
Sirius added, his voice unnecessarily sharp. Remus coloured. Fine, if Sirius wanted to be passive-aggressive.
Well, Padfoot, he replied coolly, if you want to do it so much, go and ask McGonagall. I think you'd be perfect for the job. You what?
Sirius gaped at him. Remus raised an eyebrow.
Oh yeah, you're the only person in this school who chats more shit than Lockhart does.
Mary and Lily burst into giggles, covering their mouths. Sirius scowled.
Up yours,
he muttered. The game ended with 280 points to Gryffindor, but Sirius wasn't cheering. Quidditch matches generally took up most of the day, from an early breakfast listening to James's pep talks to the inevitable after-party in the common room. Sirius stayed up late, so nobody noticed that they didn't go to bed together. By Monday, they were on slightly more civil terms, or at least neither of them wanted any of their friends to know they'd been fighting. Remus immersed himself in his NEWT revision. If he wasn't alone in the library, he was extending his group study sessions to run an hour longer than usual each night. It was the week of the full moon, and he was utterly exhausted, but at least it made getting to sleep easier. And he had to avoid Marlene, too, of course. He deliberately skipped going to Madame Pomfrey's Tuesday night healing classes, just in case the subject of werewolves reared its ugly head again. Marlene was the sort of girl who would derail an entire lesson if she thought injustice was being done somewhere. To Remus's surprise, Gilderoy Lockhart, the smarmy Ravenclaw commentator, made a guest appearance in his Wednesday revision group. Lockhart was in the year below and hadn't crossed the Marauders' radar much so far. He was a bit camp and annoying, prone to laughing too loudly in the dining hall, but that was all Remus knew about him. He sidled up to Remus, his hair in ridiculous blonde bouffant curls. He stank of aftershave, too. "Love the idea," he gushed. "Helping other students to achieve. Really great."
Yeah, I suppose," Remus replied, shuffling his papers.
"Thought I'd lend a hand." Lockhart grinned toothily. "I'm rather a whiz myself, you know. Charms, transfiguration, potions, you name it."
"Oh, great, cheers. I said I'd go through anti-giant legislation with the third years today, but have a chat with Chris."
He moved away quickly, leaving Christopher to deal with it. Wednesday was also the second official meeting of the prank planning group, so Remus and Chris stayed back in the charms classroom after the study group. Chris had a vaguely dazed expression as they leaned against Flitwick's desk, waiting.
"Sorry about that,"
Remus offered, lighting up a cigarette as Lockhart swarmed out.
"I don't know how to deal with him."
"Oh, it's fine. He's in half my classes, so I'm used to it," Chris replied, still looking a bit disturbed.
"What did he want?"
"It took a while to figure out," Christopher frowned. "He kept telling me how good he is at everything. But I think he wanted help with charms. Remus snorted disdainfully. The prank planning session was shorter than the week before. It turned out that no one had any decent ideas yet. The fourth-year Ravenclaws had uncovered some frankly terrifying curses which they were all eager to share, but Lily stepped in, reiterating the rule that nobody ought to get hurt. They split up again for the journey back to their common rooms, and Remus was faced with a choice between Marlene and Yaz or Sirius and Mary. In the end, he decided it was better the devil he knew and chose Sirius and Mary. She did most of the talking, which was a relief, and the only awkward moment came when the boys were all back in the dormitory. Remus went over to his own bed, pulling back the duvet. "You're sleeping there, then?" Sirius asked out of the blue. Remus frowned, turning to look at him. He hadn't thought it was up to a debate. They were barely speaking to each other. Why on earth would they sleep together? And why on earth did Sirius want to call attention to it in front of everyone else? "Yeah," he nodded, turning back. "Full moon tomorrow. Thought we should all get as much sleep as possible." "Yeah, fair enough," Sirius replied. Remus climbed in and drew his curtains shut without another word. "Everything okay?" James whispered very loudly. Sirius grunted a response, and that was that. Thursday, 23rd of February, 1978. Remus was more on edge than usual on the day of the full moon.
How many times has he been more on edge than usual the day before the full moon?
Okay, sorry. All right. He'd slept badly anyway, thinking about the McKinnons and Sirius and wondering how he was ever going to fix any of it. At breakfast, it looked as though Marlene had had a difficult night too. Her eyes were rimmed red and her hair was messier than usual. Yaz and Mary sat on either side of her, vying to be the one who comforted her the most. "I just can't stop thinking about him." Marlene shook her head, staring into a bowl of cornflakes. "I've read so many books and accounts, and they all say it hurts a lot." Remus stopped eating his own breakfast and sipped his tea instead, trying to hide his distress. "I've read that too," Sirius said, "but I'm sure that as long as Danny asks for the help that he needs, he'll be fine." Remus tried to ignore this, seething quietly under his collar. "Mum said to take him to the ministry," Marlene continued, miserable. "They have cells there, apparently. We asked if there would be healers present, but no one will tell me anything." "I'm sure it's the best place." Yaz squeezed her arm gently. Nobody agreed with her. Mary pursed her lips. "He doesn't deserve this," Marlene. "He doesn't deserve this," Marlene burst into tears. "He doesn't deserve to be locked up all alone. He's my lovely brother, not some animal." The nausea of guilt threatened to overwhelm Remus, and he left as soon as he could. The rest of the day he could barely concentrate on his lessons. Perverse as it was, ever since the Marauders had become animagi, he'd sort of been looking forward to full moons at Hogwarts. It had been a while since he dreaded one quite so much as this. When he arrived at Madame Pomfrey's office in the evening, he found her frowning her way through a pile of letters. He'd never seen her doing paperwork before. "Oh, hello, dear," she smiled at him tiredly. "Shall we get going?" He nodded and waited patiently for her to put on her cloak. She saw him staring at the letters. "They're from ex-pupils mostly," she explained. "Ones who were affected by the attacks. Some of them have family members facing their full moon, and what to do if I know anything helpful." "Oh. I've been able to pass on a bit about aftercare, but you and I know how little real information there is," she continued as they walked out. Remus remained mute. "I've had poor Miss McKinnon here every day almost. She's a friend of yours, isn't she?" "Yes." Remus's voice cracked slightly. Madame Pomfrey patted his arm softly. "It must be very hard for you, my dear." "It's fine." "You know you can always talk to me if you need to." "Thanks." He could hear Sirius's voice in the back of his head, taunting him. "I told you so." But Sirius was wrong. Physical pain was the very least of Remus's problems, and something he was willing to bear if he had to. It reminded him of what he owed. Despite his apprehension, the full moon was a relief. Remus didn't even cry out from the pain of transformation. He just let it consume him. As ashamed as it made him, it was good to become something else for a few hours, to relinquish control. The wolf was still on good terms with Padfoot at least, and they could play and run and hunt without any messy human problems getting in the way. But it wasn't to last. Friday, 24th of February, 1979. The routine was standard by now. Remus transformed back, the others checked he was okay, then left. Madame Pomfrey came to collect him. He spent the morning under a sleeping draught, woke up in time for lunch, then headed back down to his own bed in the afternoon. More recently, Sirius had been coming to collect him from the infirmary, if his timetable allowed for it, and actually, even when his timetable didn't allow for it, Sirius took any excuse to bunk off. Of course, given the way that Remus had been acting, he didn't expect Sirius to come that day. But Sirius was always full of surprises. "Brought you a frog," he said, waiting patiently as Remus finished tying his laces. He handed over a chocolate frog box, which Remus accepted. His temper had cooled quite a bit. Perhaps a good long sleep had been all he needed. "Thanks." "Can we be okay again?" Sirius asked, sounding genuinely sorry. "Can we both just admit we said some stupid stuff, but it's over now?" Remus looked at him for a long time, letting him stew a little bit. Then he smiled. "Yeah, go on then." They walked back to the tower quite happily, though Remus was pushing himself a bit harder than normal, trying not to limp or show any trace of discomfort. "Is Marlene okay?" Remus asked as they neared the common room. "Yeah, I think so," Sirius nodded. "She got a letter from her mum this morning saying Danny's okay. Crying a bit, but she's less of a state now." "Good, that's good." They pushed through the portrait hall and walked through the common room. "I think I'll go up to bed for a bit," Remus said, making for the door. "That's okay." "Of course." Sirius nodded, over polite, as they headed up yet another flight of stairs. Remus was seriously struggling now, but he'd be damned if he let Sirius see it. "You tired?" Remus asked. "Nah," Sirius said. "Slept all morning. Peter too." "Oh, good." Remus finally reached his bed and sat down. Without even thinking, his hand went to rub his hip. He stopped as soon as he realized, but Sirius's eyes zeroed in on it at once. He looked Remus in the eye reproachfully. "Did you speak to Madame Pomfrey?" "We had a lovely chat, thanks." Remus stiffened, defences back up. "About all her poor ex-students who had to transform for the first time last night. It was all really cheery." Remus tutted. Sirius tutted. "But did you talk to her about your hip?" "No," Remus huffed, lying down. "Remus, stop being so difficult. You see her every week. Just mention to her. I'll do it if you want me to." "Jesus Christ, not this again. Leave me alone." Remus sat up again. "No," Sirius retorted just as viciously. "I don't understand why you won't tell her about it. I'm sure she could help." "Oh my God, why can't you just drop it? I said I don't want to bother her with crap like this. You're making such a fuss over nothing." Remus was on his feet now, the wolf inside him wanting the higher ground, asserting dominance. You're avoiding your problems again," Sirius raged. "You always do this, and it's so bloody exhausting. You think you're being so mature, don't you, keeping everything bottled up? It's stupid. You're just making a martyr of yourself, and it's like you want to be miserable." "Oh, get fucked, Black," Remus shouted. "Easy for you to have a go, isn't it? Why do we always have to talk about my shit life, Mr. Tell Me a Fucking Secret?" Sirius blinked, shocked, and Remus was elated. He'd had something now. He had Sirius in his jaws. He wasn't going to let go until he'd tasted blood. "What about you, Sirius? How can we never talk about your fucked up family with your Death Eater brother and your insane cousin? Why don't we talk about your pain and your scars for a little while? See how that feels." "Remus, for fuck's sake." "No, I know. Why don't we talk about your mother?" Remus went in for the kill, and it was more effective than even he had expected. Sirius changed completely. His expression froze, his posture tensed, as if he'd been punched in the gut. Remus almost wished he'd punched him, because then at least Sirius could just punch him back and they could have a fair fight and that would be it. But that hadn't been fair, and he couldn't take it back. Sirius gave him a look of utter hurt and shock before quickly turning to anger. "Go fuck yourself, Lupin," he spat, storming out. "Yeah, piss off then," Remus shouted as the door slammed. He was breathing hard and his face was very hot. He wished Sirius would come back and shout at him a bit more, so he could shout back, but he settled for chain smoking and the Sex Pistols. Fuck everybody. Sirius did not return, and Remus did not know where the map was, so he couldn't look for him. Eventually, the dorm room door did open again, and Lily and James came in, very close together and whispering happily. "Oh, hiya, Mooney." James stopped as he caught sight of Remus brooding by the window. He looked a bit sheepish. "Sorry, we thought you'd be in the hospital wing still." "No, she lets me go after lunch normally," Remus replied monotone. He got up. "I'll get out of your way." No, Remus, don't," Lily said, flustered. "We just came up here for the quiet." "Really?" Remus raised a sarcastic eyebrow, and Lily and James blushed, looking away. "Where's Padfoot?" James went over to sit on his bed. "Dunno." "What?" "Dunno, don't care." Remus withdrew another cigarette from his matchbox and lit it with the end of the last one. "Are you having a fight?" "Look, stay out of it, Potter," Remus snarled. James recoiled and looked at Lily, who shrugged back at him. At that very moment, it was as if it had been summoned just to break the tension. An owl flew in the open window, surprising all three of them. It was from the Potters, and James retrieved 2 letters tied to its leg. He glanced down at one and held it out to Remus. "For you, Mooney." Clicking his tongue irritably, Remus got up off the sill and went to snatch it from James's outstretched hand. He opened it, skimmed the brief note from Mrs. Potter, who'd been so kindly forwarding all of his correspondence. He expected another postcard from Grant, but it was a neatly folded envelope. He didn't recognize the tiny blue ink handwriting, but it had a Muggle stamp. He looked down at the return address, written in tiny script on the back. "If undelivered, please return to Miss Hope Jenkins, Sparrow Ward, Cardiff City Hospital, Cardiff."
Oh my god, at least the plot's going to go in a different direction here. At least his mother finally...
Something's going to happen with the mum. Yes.
That'll probably make Remus hate himself more. But oh my god, Sirius, get out. You're in a toxic relationship.
Right? Sirius is in a... I was just reading this going, oh my god, Sirius, this is bad for you. You need to stop this. This is bad for you.
Lockhart was actually kind of interesting that. Not enough of him.
No, that was good. The Lockhart bit was great.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. There could have been more of that. Dan thinks that the author has just been yelling at themselves for the last several chapters.
I think so. I think the author was just going through something and couldn't write about anything happy. Maybe they were having relationship issues and their fights or something.
The next chapter says it's a sad chapter, but I'm assuming it's not. I'm assuming it has something to do with the mom, because it said it came from a hospital.
Yeah.
So maybe she's mentally ill or something, or maybe she's terminal or something.
Yeah.
Maddie says that Remus blames the wolf in him, but it's really just the asshole in him, as always. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, don't blame it on the wolf. You are deliberately trying to hurt Sirius right now.
Yeah.
That crap with his mom and his family, that was low.
I even said he let Sirius stew for a little bit.
Yeah, before saying, yeah, we're okay. We'll be good.
And I could see if, Sirius, started something with
right.
you and then you're making up, you could still have that little bit, I'm gonna forgive you. I'm gonna make you sit on it for a little bit longer.
Right.
But Sirius has done nothing but try to help.
Right, Sirius is doing what any loving, caring partner would do for their partner.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, you're in pain. Let's get you help. If you're too embarrassed, we can do it together.
Yeah.
And instead, Remus reacts by telling him to fuck off. Like, and insulting him. And, like, he's mad at Sirius because Sirius is worrying about his pain. Like,
Right.
and
Like,
Sirius literally said what we all were thinking. It's like you want to be miserable.
Yeah. I know. It was like, exactly.
Sirius literally said what we've all been thinking this entire time.
Miss Queen Bean 89. Do you want us to hate Remus? Because this is how you make us hate Remus.
Right?
But no, I think the next chapter. I think it's good we actually read this because I think the next chapter will be a little bit refreshing. For as much as I'm sure it's going to be sad because his mom is probably dying, or he's going to get there and find out that he didn't make it in time or something. At least we get away from the relationship.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure it's going to be this chapter, and then the last, like, 5 paragraphs are going to be him and Sirius making up from the fight because now he has more perspective on the situation.
I mean, I personally would like Sirius to not get back together with him.
Yeah, Maggie was yelling, "Yes, Sirius, tell him."
Yeah.
He's...
Yeah.
I was serious on this.
Me too.
Sirius
I am
is...
100% backing Sirius on this.
That's what I mean.
Like,
Sirius has been doing everything right.
Like,
Remus, who we saw grow as a character and become this mature individual, seems to be just regressing.
Yeah, like backpedaling big time.
That's true, Dan. He'd rather seem angry than weak. But we had that in the beginning, right? That was like his whole thing where he got that angsty stage, he joined the gang, and he was dressing like a skinhead and all this other stuff. And then his friends brought him out of that.
Right.
And that's why this frustrates me so much, is because they all brought him out of that. And you saw him start to grow as a character, and it seems like since he's gotten with Sirius, it's been like downhill for Remus.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like he's taken nothing from what he's learned from past experiences to grow as a character.
Right.
That's why this slump is so frustrating for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like we're doing the same thing over again, but now we're older. And
and I mean, that might be realistic that, people never get over it and they can regress, but it stagnates a story and makes it kind of blah to read. Like, we've run out of things to say about it.
Unless this is to show that Remus and Sirius being together is actually not good for either of them, and they have to learn that they shouldn't be together. I don't know. Sirius is not just a friend. He's his other half. Not cool to continue with this attitude.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, if the author does turn it around and makes them realize, like, we're better friends than...
Together.
Yeah, together. Like, I'll look back on this and be like, all right, you got me. You dragged it on too long. You gotta work on your timing, but you got me.
That's what I mean.
That's fine.
If this ends up where Sirius and Lupin realize that them being together makes them worse people, not better people, then okay. I could be fine with that. But yeah, timing.
The issue is, though, Sirius is a better person because of it. Or at least relatively speaking, I guess.
Yeah, like the relationship has actually made Sirius more of a caring, considerate person, and he's grown. Whereas Lupin is actually becoming a worse person and is now acting selfish and manipulative and almost like emotionally blackmailing Sirius to a degree. Like, ugh.
And yeah, I agree. It will be sad to see the passing of James's parents. That is one build-up.
Yeah.
That I totally agree with. I wonder if they'll write that in.
Yeah.
Does James's parents pass before or after James dies?
They pass before they have Harry.
Okay.
Because it's mentioned in the books that when Harry was a baby, like the James's parents never got to meet Harry because they passed away.
Yeah.
So that's whenever it's edited, Kayla.
Very soon. I have like 8 of the next 10 chapters edited. So either this weekend or like Monday. Because I should have plenty of time to edit this weekend. Outside of streaming.
I actually liked this chapter just for the pure and simple reason that Remus got told that he's on some bullshit and he needs to cut it out.
Yeah.
Thank you for Sirius, who is the character I like. Also, is it just me? Or does he like... Maybe I'm getting... Okay. Just, you can tell me if I'm just now being rude. Is it just me, or does his relationship with Sirius revolve around how beautiful Sirius is, how perfect Sirius is, but not a whole lot about his personality and how well they get along with each other?
I don't know. There have been times where he talks about how
like it's very
Sirius
like
always says the right things or something.
But
or like with Valentine's Day.
But at this point, there seems to be like just a lot of like in the previous chapters when they were getting to know each other and Remus was like crushing on him and growing to be best friends with him. There was a lot of emphasis on, you know, Sirius's personality and like the things he says and all of that. And now we're at this point where it's just always about how perfect Sirius looks and the descriptions of how he just wants him all the time. I don't know.
That's kind of flip-flop.
He puts Sirius on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Like physically, like he puts Sirius on this pedestal of how beautiful he looks, but then treats him very badly.
Yeah. Like I see it as this author is writing a toxic relationship. And if they're doing it on purpose and in the next few chapters, like you said, like they realize, you know, we were better apart than we are together.
Then that's fine.
Then that's fine. You know? Then if someone asks me about it, I'll be like, just bear with the story. It's worth it. It gets better.
I'm totally fine with it if that's how it goes.
If they're writing this because they just think that this is an interesting relationship dynamic, and I'm not
right.
So that's why I'm holding out hope.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Is like this seems very dysfunctional and toxic, and if the point is to be dysfunctional and toxic to make them realize it, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm. And at least this time they were just openly where Remus was like toxic and they got into a fight, and it wasn't the same old just Remus feels sad, Sirius wants to talk about it, Remus doesn't, so he distracts him with sex.
Yeah.
Seemed to be repetitive. So I'm hoping with this chapter, which was slightly different, and the fact that we're going to get the chapter with his mother next, we're going to start to see that change.
I hope so.
Those are my hopes and almost, I guess, predictions.
The author is making me dislike Remus. He has too many issues. Oh, this hope I'm saying that right. Agree with your analysis. Sirius and Lupin reminds me of Ashley and Scarlet in Gone with the Wind. I could see it. Scarlett O'Hara puts this Ashley on this huge pedestal, and it just does not work out.
I kind of remember that book. We had to read it in school in like 8th or 9th grade, but...
Oh, and Maddie said in the past, Remus has already hit Sirius. He did punch him a couple times. There was that one time where he punched him. Like, he got so mad he hit him.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Sirius, get out.
Yeah, this is red flags right here, Sirius. You go find yourself... Go talk to Grant. Grant was nice.
Maybe Sirius and Chris will get together.
Right? Christopher seems like he was probably great in a relationship.
Yeah.
His only hang-up seems to be the fact that he's in the closet. And to be fair, that's a legitimate hang-up to have.
Yeah.
Especially in the 70s. Like, I get that. Oh, and he hit him in the theater? I don't remember that.
Oh, but yeah. That was before they were together. Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't together at that point.
They were still like young kids. I don't know. Just like a little scrap between friends. I don't know. I view that as differently.
I'm just...
You just skimming through to see if anything changes?
Yeah, I'm just skimming.
Anything?
Yeah. I just...
This is great. Just you going through, and then I have to turn around and say, be sure to join us Saturday when we read more of the Young Dudes. It's going to be a great time. It's like watching someone spit out food at a restaurant, then turn around and say, 5 stars, delicious.
We're here for the reading, regardless of what it is. I will, even if I'm not liking what's happening, I will at least try to read it well.
Yeah, and you have been a champ about that.
Thank you. The next chapter, actually, I think is probably going to be a pretty good one. They were friends when he hit him, but it still shows he has a terrible temper.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Kayla. Well, thank you for joining us as long as you did.
Yes.
You actually hung out with us for quite a while, so it was nice to see you and stick around for a bit.
And we're almost done. Anyways.
We are. We're gonna peace out here in a minute anyway, so you're fine.
And yeah, I agree. It does show his terrible temper, but I mean, also around the age, that's just kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but
young boy kid things with their friends.
I never did that to my friends.
You aren't a boy.
Oh, that being a boy excuses violence?
No, but we have testosterone.
See you next week, Kayla.
We have testosterone exploding through our system. And that's one of the things that it does. It increases your temper. And when you have a bunch of boys with super high testosterone, angers can flare.
Now that we've been talking about it, now all I can sit here and think is, oh my god, Sirius is in a toxic relationship. This is terrible.
Yeah, he really is. Like, everything is pointing to that.
Yeah.
Now I just kind of feel bad for Sirius.
I do too. I do feel terrible for Sirius.
He had to
And
deal with an abusive, I mean, it's kind of saying, abusive family, and now he's in this abusive relationship with Remus.
Maddie's like, I want to punch Remus sometimes, but I still want to continue the story. I'm too invested. Agreed.
That's how we
That is how we're feeling right now. We are too invested, but we want to punch Remus in the face.
Well, I mean, you just gotta stick around because you want to believe it's gonna get better.
Yeah, I do want to believe it's going to get better. Hopefully when the war starts and stuff, it'll...
Maybe we'll make it to the war on Saturday.
Maybe we will get to the war. Been waiting for Voldemort for forever. I mean, come on. Good God, Voldemort. Let's get some Voldy action up in here.
I don't think we're gonna get Voldemort for a long time. Sorry to say.
Ren is like, oh my god, your cat. I mean, look, oh,
you scared him.
Well, I mean, look
I know,
at him.
he just lays like such a baby.
He's a sweet bee. He's a sweet bee. J action.
But on that note, we will see you guys Saturday,
Yes.
5 p.m. Eastern Time.
Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
We'll read more of the Young Dudes and possibly start delving into some Silmarillion stories.
Yes, potentially.
I guess we'll see how things go. If all the Young Dudes picks up, we'll do a little bit more of that. If it remains kind of this steady
Drip.
self-hate fest, we'll do a little something to mix it up.
Yes,
So
yes.
we can...
We'll play it by ear on Saturday. See how it goes.
So thank you all for joining us.
Yes.
We will see you then.
See you in a few days, guys.